Chapter 407. If they were to draw lots, they might not get Qin Hao, but Long Fun and Tian Buguang. Not only Wang Gui, but Tian Buguang and the other two were also pleased. They all looked at Qin Hao at the same time. But Wang Gui was the first to speak. He pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said, "In that case, I choose him. I'm going to reserve this Qin Hao." "Haha, do you think I'm invisible? The one who will kill Qin Hao can only be me." Tian Buguang and the man in red stood up one after another after Wang Gui. This scene caused a lot of people below to be surprised. The disciples of each school looked at each other and started to talk about it while pointing at the stage. They all wanted to choose Qin Hao as their opponent? It was no wonder. After all, Qin Hao was the weakest among them. Of course, they had to choose the weakest one. But then again, it was also a very honorable thing to be the opponent of super geniuses like Tian Buguang and Wang Gui. Even if Qin Hao went to hell, it was enough for him to smile in the underworld. "You think I'm weak and want to bully me, right?" Qin Hao sneered. "Cut the crap. I want to avenge my father and brother. Young Master Tian, I can give in to you for other things, but I must kill Qin Hao. If you are willing to compromise, I, Wang Gui, will remember this kindness. In the future, if you ask me to go east, I will not go north. I am willing to be your lackey." Wang Gui looked at Tian Buguang and said. His red eyes were full of determination. No one could stop his determination to kill Qin Hao. Tian Buguang hesitated for a moment and thought about it. Finally, he stepped back. Since Wang Gui was willing to kill Qin Hao for him, it saved him the trouble of doing it himself. Moreover, Wang Gui's aptitude was good. He was willing to be his lackey, which made Tian Buguang feel that his status had been elevated in an instant. He nodded and said, "Okay, remember, don't let him die too easily. Don't worry, young Master Tian. I will let him enjoy a taste better than death before he dies." Wang Gui hurriedly patted his chest as a guarantee, as if he would beat Qin Hao to the ground the moment he made a move. Then, he sneered at the red-shirt man. "What do you think? Do you still want to snatch it from me?" The red-clothed man let out a strange laugh and took the initiative to retreat. Fanja did not want to offend a mad dog like Wang Gui in order to kill Qin Hao. In fact, he also wanted to see Wang Gui's strength. The man in red's ultimate goal was to win the championship. It was a good thing to let the others make the first move and consume some energy. "Since you have chosen Qin Hao, I will choose Xiaogua." At this time, Long Fen spoke up. He wanted to clean up the Violent Dragon Institute first. As he spoke, there was a mocking smile on his face. "I've also been waiting for this day for a long time." Xiaogua secretly clenched his fists. The friction between him and Long Fun continued to happen in the institute, and he was bullied by the other party. It was time for the two of them to settle things. Moreover, in order to go back and save Qi Daxiong, this champion, Xiaogua would never back down. "Very good." Li Dazui nodded and announced the start of the first round of the championship. The first to go on stage were Long Fun and Xiaogua. Qin Hao had just defeated Feng Qingyang and fought 2 rounds in a row, so he needed to take a break. This could be considered a favor from Li Dazui to the other party. Although it was a trivial matter, it was very important to Qin Hao. He really needed to go down the stage and take some qi replenishing pills and great elemental pills. Immediately, Wang Gui, with extreme unwillingness, could only temporarily suppress his killing intent and leave the arena with the others. As everyone walked away, only Xiaogua and Long Fun, who was a head taller than him, were left on the Luoshui stage. "Long Fun, teach this traitor a lesson for me. Let him know what the consequences of betraying the institute are." Dean Lu slapped the armrest of his chair and shouted, "Little Gua, don't be afraid. Do your best to display your talent. It doesn't matter if you lose. With your master here, no one can touch a single hair on your head." Ouyang Hong also stood up and cheered loudly in the crowd. Xiaogua was currently fighting for Qi Yang. Little bastard, did you hear that? If you die in my hands today, not only will it prove that I am stronger than you, it will also destroy the confidence of your dog master and raise my status in the Institute. As long as I kill you, I will definitely be taken care of by the Institute after I enter the inner courtyard. So, you will be my stepping stone with a smile. Accompanied by a loud roar, Long Fen took a horse stance and clenched his fists at his waist. His body released a wave of fluctuations, and behind him, a 20-foot-long illusory evil dragon gradually condensed. As soon as he made a move, he awakened the source spirit in his body and revealed his special skill. Immediately, Long Fen's attack power, speed, and defense greatly increased compared to people of the same level. On the surface, Long Fen was a 5-star mortal saint. After awakening his source spirit, his battle power could definitely kill a 7-star mortal saint. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Xiaogua also took a horse stance and clenched his fists at his waist. His eyes were filled with determination. As the orange light enveloped his body, the illusory giant bull creature vaguely appeared behind him. His opponent was Long Fen, so he couldn't be careless. Therefore, at this time, Lin Feng couldn't force out Xiaogua's source spirit even with his full strength. It was revealed in front of everyone. In an instant, the giant bull and the evil dragon roared in the air above the arena. An invisible feeling of horror spread to the hearts of the disciples below. It made their hair stand on end. Is this the precious source spirit of an elementalist? This is the first time I've seen it. It's too shocking. I heard that after awakening the source spirit, it can increase the battle power of an elementalist. Not only that, once the source spirit and the body are combined, Xiaogua and Long Fen on the stage will become monsters that are neither human nor beast. Thinking about it makes me look forward to it and also a little scared. Below the stage, some people were discussing. Brother Melon, you can't lose. Qin Hao was also quite nervous. After all, in a one-on-one fight, Xiaogua was weaker than Long Fen by 1 level. Even if they both had source spirits, it wouldn't be easy to win. It could even be said that the possibility of losing was higher. Unless Xiaogua had a temporary breakthrough and became a 5-star mortal saint. But now it seemed that it was almost impossible. While talking, the two people on the stage attacked at the same time. As old opponents, they were quite familiar with each other. Therefore, Xiaogua and Long Fen's battle didn't have any fancy move. It was all real punches and kicks, and every punch hit the flesh. With the amplification of the source spirit, every punch that fell on the opponent's body made a dull impact sound. The audience below the stage cheered with excitement and enthusiasm. After a short period of 10 or so exchanges, the rapidly fighting figures suddenly pulled apart the distance between them. Jia. Still the same, your skin is still so thick. It seems that if I don't absorb the source spirit into my body, it will be difficult to make you submit, Long Fen said ferociously. Judging from the strength of the body, the difference between the two was not big. Even Xiaogua's giant bull source spirit's defense was a little stronger than Long Fen's. He had to absorb the source spirit into his body and merge it with his body to perform the first transformation. Chapter 408. Making up his mind, Long Fen shouted, "Soul into my body!" The illusory evil dragon coiling behind him let out a deep groan. Then, it turned into a wisp of white mist and entered his body through his back. Thump! Thump! There seemed to be a heavy heartbeat in the arena. It was very strong, like a sledgehammer hitting everyone's heart, making them feel it clearly. Long Fen's body on the stage immediately changed. His muscles gradually swelled and his height slowly increased. His nearly 1.8 meters body was like an inflated ball, becoming more and more burly and thick. Not only his height, but his appearance also underwent an earth-shaking change. On the surface of his body, dense dragon scales grew and covered his whole body. His arms were thicker than ordinary people's thighs and his legs were as strong as pillars. Even half of his face was covered with dragon scales. Finally, his height reached 4 meters. With a swish sound, a thick and solid tail also stretched out from behind Long Fun's buttocks. He swung his tail and smashed it against the Luo water platform. Every strike caused the platform to tremble. Monster! Oh my God! It was the first time for many people to see the combination of the soul and the body. They couldn't help but scream in horror. Some girls were so scared that they covered their eyes with both hands, not daring to look at the stage. At this moment, Long Fun was not a human. He was clearly a monster, full of evil. If it were ordinary people, when they faced this monster that was neither human nor dragon, not to mention having the courage to fight, they would probably turn around and run away. Soul into my body. Immediately after, Xiaogua also shouted and immediately merged the giant bull's soul into his body. The speed was not slow at all. Like Long Fun, the illusory giant bull also turned into a white mist and entered his body from his back. Then, thump, thump, the feeling of the chest shaking once again sounded in the arena. Xiaogua's height and appearance also underwent a huge change. His 2 pectoral muscles burst his clothes. In front of everyone, he was as hard and strong as a rock. His arms were thick and solid, and his legs were like pillars. His body had also grown to a height of 4 meters. With a moo sound, 2 sharp fangs protruded from the corners of Qi Xiaogua's mouth. At this time, the elegant young man had already transformed into a 4-meter-tall giant, standing on equal footing with Long Fun, who had transformed into a dragon man. Oh my God! This is too shocking! So heaven-defying, who dares to fight with them? Putting aside using origin energy to attack, even if I were to use a sword or saber, I wouldn't be able to break through their dragon scales and cowhide. This is only a wild beast-type source spirit. I wonder what kind of changes will happen to a cultivator's appearance after a sword-type or elemental-type source spirit enters their body. You'll see it soon. It's said that Tianbuguang's source spirit is a flame source spirit. In the Star Moon Academy, there was an ice goddess named Chun Wanqin. She spoke like a fairy and her yuan spirit was of the ice attribute. She was a perfect match for Tianbuguang. If the 2 of them become lovers and practice dual cultivation, it will undoubtedly be greatly improved. Their cultivation speed will increase. Zez. What a pity! The people below all had different opinions. There were also some insiders who revealed Tianbuguang's secret. This information naturally did not escape Qin Hao's ears. His face immediately became serious and even somewhat distorted. This was also the first time he knew that Tianbuguang had a flame source spirit. According to this, the other party cultivated a fire cultivation technique. It was because of this that he chased after Chun Wanqin like a mad dog. Squeak! Qin Hao suddenly clenched his fist. The flame source spirit was ranked at the top of the list of source spirit. It had a terrifying destructive power. The flames released by the source spirit were very different from the flames released by the cultivators. The 2 could not be mentioned in the same breath. This Tianbuguang's ability has greatly exceeded my expectations. This was the first time Qin Hao was incomparably cautious. He felt that it was very troublesome. Even if he ate the entire Saint Violet Orchid, it would be very difficult to win against Tianbuguang. At this time, Xiaogua and Long Fun on the stage began to fight again. After the 2 of them transformed, they became very crazy and violent. They were too lazy to use any origin qi. Their footsteps caused the Luoshui stage to rumble. When they approached, 4 powerful palms clashed with each other. Just like 2 wild bulls, their heads were against each other. They were competing purely in terms of physical strength. The Wild Dragon Academy already has me, Long Fun. Why do you still want to come? You still want to take my place and beat me? In your dreams. Long Fun gathered his strength and clenched his teeth. With a fierce push, Xiaogua was pushed back a step. I never thought of competing with you. I came to learn, but you bullied me again and again. Long Fun, as the senior brother of the outer court, don't you feel ashamed? Xiaogua was not to be outdone. The first time he transformed, it was when Qin Hao's family was in danger. At that time, he forcefully broke the seal and became delirious. Now, with the improvement of his strength, he could freely control his origin spirit. Immediately, he used all his strength to push Long Fun back, causing the other party to sway a little. Damn it! Go to hell! Long Fun roared loudly. His tail hit the stage with all his strength. As if he had 3 legs, he immediately stabilized his body. And with this force, he grabbed Xiaogua's hand and swung him up. With a rumble, he threw him over his shoulder and smashed him on the ground. Puff! This powerful blow directly made Xiaogua spit out a mouthful of blood. After transforming, his strength was too strong. A seemingly ordinary attack was enough to kill people. Immediately, he wanted to turn around and counterattack. But Long Fun did not give him the chance. His thigh that was covered with dragon scales fiercely stomped down on Xiaogua's head, pressing it down. This shocking kick was extremely powerful. Suddenly, Xiaogua's head emitted a squeak sound. It seemed that if he used a little more strength, his head would be crushed. You, actually, broke through, Xiaogua said in shock. He grabbed Long Fun's foot with both hands. He wanted to throw Long Fun away, but he found that he could not break free at all. In the past when they fought, although it was more difficult for him to fight, it was impossible for him to be subdued in one move. The result was obvious. Long Fun must have advanced to a 6-star mortal saint. It also indicated that Xiaogua was no longer his opponent in terms of strength. Ha ha ha! You only know now? It's too late. Regarding this, Long Fun confessed without hiding anything and let out a wild laugh. Then, with a bang, another leg rose and fell fiercely, stomping on Xiaogua's chest. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out of Xiaogua's mouth. He felt that this kick had already shattered his sternum. Oh no! Qin Hao could no longer remain calm and stood up from his chair. Chapter 409. The scene in front of them really surprised the surrounding spectators. In their opinion, even if Xiaogua was weaker than Long Fun by 1 star, if he went all out, at the very least, he would be able to injure his opponent. But now it was completely one-sided. The reason for all of this was very simple. Long Fun was not only 1 star higher than Xiaogua, but 2. The difference in strength between the two was far greater than imagined. I'm afraid this Xiaogua is going to suffer. A disciple of the Wild Dragon Academy shook his head and sighed. Everyone knew of the hatred between him and Long Fun. With this opportunity to suppress him, he would inevitably suffer a merciless destruction. In fact, this was indeed the case. Long Fun became incomparably excited. His huge feet covered in dragon scales continuously rose and fell, heavily stepping on Xiaogua's chest. Every step was like a huge rock smashing down. If it was an ordinary person, their heart would probably be trampled into mud with just 1 strike. Even if Xiaogua had the protection of his soul, his body gradually shrank under the continuous bombardment of the opponent. At the same time, a large amount of blood flowed out from Xiaogua's mouth. It was a tragic sight. Who asked you to compete with me? Who asked you to stand out? A country bumpkin without power and influence wants to surpass me? No way. After Long Fun's cruel stomping, he bent down and looked at Xiaogua, whose face was covered in blood, with a ferocious face. He smiled and said, "How does it feel to be stepped on? Now I'll give you a chance to live. Admit in front of everyone that you're inferior to me and call me father. If not, Poochie." Accompanied by the sound of flesh being pierced, the 5 sharp claws on Long Fun's feet deeply sank into Xiaogua's chest. The flesh and blood split open, and the claws pierced into his heart like knives. Spit, although the pain was unbearable, Xiaogua spat a mouthful of bloody saliva on Long Fun's face. He gritted his teeth and said, "In your dreams." "Damn it! Damn it!" Long Fun was furious, and his eyes were bloodshot. Then, his other clawed foot landed on the other side of Xiaogua's chest, as if he wanted to tear his chest apart with his feet. "Stop! How dare you hurt my disciple? I, O Hong Hong, swear that no matter who you are, I will massacre your entire clan." Below, Ouyang Hong had long since reached the end of his patience, and he immediately flew up. However, before he could rush to the stage, he was stopped by Mad Dragon Academy's Dean Lu Midway. There was a loud bang. The two of them fiercely clashed with their palms, and their figures were simultaneously forced back. "Well done, Long Fun. This is the consequence of betraying our Wild Dragon Academy. You can be unbridled on the stage. I will take care of all the consequences for you." Vice President Lu laughed wildly. Both of his palms were wrapped in thick yuan qi, as he stared at Ouyang Hong cautiously. He was truly overjoyed. Xiaogua, that traitorous disciple, deserved to die. Sigh. Li Dazi shook his head and muttered, "Xiaogua, that brat, just admit defeat. As long as you admit defeat, I can save your life." After all, this was a sacred competition organized by the imperial family. Even if Li Dazue was the host, he would not dare to wantonly break the rules. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to the Dragon Abyss Emperor. "Brother Gua, you have done your best. Leave the rest to me. Admit defeat." Qin Hao clenched his fist and said. His gaze was like a sword, piercing straight into Long Fun's position. In fact, if not for Yi Shuihan and Nalan Li holding him back, he would have already rushed to the stage and hacked Long Fun to death. "Yeah, Xiaogua, quickly admit defeat. Don't fight anymore. Woo, look at how badly you have been beaten." Seeing Xiaogua's miserable state, Nalan Li could not help but cry. His chest had been trampled into a bloody mess. He was already on the verge of death. If he continued to fight, he would die. "My father, my master, my senior brother is waiting for me to return home. They provided for me to study, taught me how to conduct myself, trained me in martial arts. They have high hopes for me and sent me to the Luo Shui Empire. How can I admit defeat? How can I give up just like that? They're still waiting for me to save them. Big brother, you give big brother, do you have a reason for me to admit defeat? I would rather die than to retreat." Xiaogua used all his strength to shout at Qin Hao's position. His eyes were filled with unyielding tears. "Nonsense!" Qin Hao reprimanded loudly. He was really anxious. Now was not the time to be brave. Truly a pair of brothers who have gone through hardship. I have to say, Xiaogua, you have recognized the wrong boss. You should call me your big brother. Qin Hao is simply a waste. He can only watch from below the stage. In fact, he can't do anything. Look, he would rather watch you die than to violate the competition rules. Come and fight with me." "He is a coward." Long Fun put his head under Xiaogua's head and said close to his ear. There was a playful expression on his face. Since he couldn't make Xiaogua surrender, humiliating Qin Hao was also a good thing. It would be best to provoke him and make him violate the competition rules. "No, my big brother is not a coward. He is a hero. He is my idol." Xiaogua resisted. "Long Fun, I will kill you." Qin Hao's eyes were filled with bloody light. His body was trembling. He was about to lose control of himself. "What? Could it be that I'm wrong? You are clearly a coward. You can't do anything while watching your brother being trampled. I might as well tell you a secret. I spent a lot of money to arrange for the red-clothed man to enter the competition. I just want to kill you both. Unfortunately, I killed one for no reason. Marulong, that guy is really unlucky. He became a ghost for you. Ha ha." Long Fun laughed unscrupulously. "Bastard!" Qin Hao was furious. His energy surged and he was about to rush up. "Qin Hao, don't. Big brother, don't be impulsive." Don't fall into Long Fun's trap. Yi Shuihan and Nalan Li pulled Qin Hao to the ground. Come on, come and kill me. Unfortunately, you don't have the ability. They say that brothers can sacrifice themselves for each other. I don't know if you, Qin Hao, have the courage. If you stab the knife into your chest, I can consider sparing Xiaogua's life. Long Fun gave a signal to the Quanglong Academy. Clang! Clang! A short knife flew through the air and fell under Qin Hao's feet. This knife was thrown by Long Sanjin. It was obvious that he had colluded with Long Fun to scheme against Qin Hao. Big brother, don't. On the stage, Xiaogua struggled crazily. Qin Hao had fought several matches in a row. He had not recovered his energy yet. He still had to face stronger experts. If 2 knives were stabbed into his chest, it would undoubtedly be a fatal injury. Hua! This time, the people on the 8 spectator stands stood together and looked in Qin Hao's direction. Chapter 410. Don't always talk about being righteous and benevolent. You will admit defeat at the critical moment. Hurry up and stab the knife into your chest. Let me, Wang Gui, admire you. Wang Gui chuckled. In his heart, Long Fun's move was simply amazing. Wan Qin told me before that there was a man named Qin Hao who was her hero. No matter when and where, he would never refuse the help of his friends. He would not hesitate to go through fire and water. But you are disappointing. Could it be that Qin Hao and the Qin Hao that Wan Qin knows are not the same person? Tian Buguang put his hands behind his back and said sarcastically. No, Qin Hao, don't do it. The veiled woman murmured from afar. Brother, don't listen to their nonsense. You want to win the championship. You can't do it for me. Well, there are so many witnesses here. As a man, Long Fun, you have to keep your word. Qin Hao did not allow Xiaogua to finish his words, nor did he give Yi Shuihan and the others a chance to stop him. He picked up the knife from the ground with his toes and held it firmly in his palm. Without thinking, he struck with his backhand, puff. The knife went into his ribs. The entire knife went into his chest. Suddenly, blood flowed out slowly and gradually soaked his white clothes. As Denda's rebirth, he naturally knew how to stab the knife into his chest at the right place to minimize the damage to himself. So, Qin Hao's knife went through the gap between his ribs. It did not hurt his internal organs, nor did it move his muscles or bones. Even so, he was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. Everyone present was shocked. The timid girls covered their eyes in fear. Qin Hao said that he would stab the knife into his chest. He did it without hesitation. In the distance, Wang Gui and Tian Buguang's eyes trembled fiercely. At this moment, they felt that they had been slapped in the face by Qin Hao. Long Fun on the stage was also stunned. He didn't expect Qin Hao to be so straightforward. In fact, if this matter was placed on Long Fun, he wouldn't care if his brother died or not, as long as he didn't die. However, Qin Hao didn't hesitate at all. Boo-hoo! Big brother! Xiaogua's heart ached. Tears welled up in his eyes and wet the tip of his nose. He regretted not listening to Qin Hao. How is it? Let my brother go. Qin Hao endured the excruciating pain as his body trembled. The scalding hot blood flowed down the saber hilt and dripped to the ground. Let him go? You're too naive. Long Fun narrowed his eyes. His nose was crooked from anger. Long, don't go too far. There are tens of thousands of people watching. Are you trying to go back on your word? Yi Shuihan roared. Who says I'm going to cheat? I said it very clearly just now. It's 2 knives. Qin Hao only stabbed once. Long Sanjin. Long Fun hurriedly gave Long Sanjin a look and then hurriedly said, Is the saber you threw a fake one? It doesn't hurt or itch. This time, change it to a wider and longer one. But big brother, Long Sanjin looked embarrassed. He didn't expect Qin Hao to be so righteous and willing to sacrifice himself for his brother. The saber he prepared in advance wasn't small. It was almost a foot long, but Long Fun was still not satisfied. Right now, it was likely that only his personal saber was qualified to do so. However, this saber was made of a middle-grade weapon. It was Long Sanjin's life. If he stabbed it to Qin Hao, what would he do if he didn't return it? Don't dilly-dally. My words don't work, right? Long Fun roared, and his eyes were fierce as he threatened. Long Sanjin was so scared that he trembled. He didn't hesitate anymore. He wiped his sumaru bag and took out a wide saber that was about 4 feet long. Clang! With a heavy sound, it was thrown under Qin Hao's feet again. With this strike, the stone slab was smashed into pieces. It could be seen how heavy this saber was. No, Xiaogua screamed crazily. This saber was exquisitely made and had a blood groove. Its ability to drain blood was very strong. If it was inserted into the chest, the blood in the body would be drained in a moment. Suddenly, his body rolled violently under Long Fun's feet. He wanted to break free and go down to stop it, but he didn't have the chance. Qin Hao kicked the saber into his hand. A dazzling light flashed and the wide saber entered his body along his left rib. This saber was very long. It penetrated Qin Hao's entire body with one blow. The ferocious tip of the saber arched out from his back. Swoosh! Like a water pipe bursting, a large amount of blood gushed out crazily along the saber. In the blink of an eye, the 1-meter radius around Qin Hao was covered with blood. Big brother! Yi Xuehan couldn't help but kneel and cry. Big brother Qin Hao! Qin Hao, you're too stupid! Nalanli rushed into her sister's arms and burst into tears. It was too cruel. Naransu shook her head with red eyes. Long Fun wouldn't let Xiaogua go so easily. Qin Hao was so stupid that he actually believed the other party? Turning back would only make him suffer in vain. Now what about it? But Qin Hao didn't care so much. As long as he could save Xiaogua's life, bleeding a little was nothing. He raised his head and looked at the Luoshui stage. His face turned pale in an instant, but his eyes were incomparably firm. Big brother, on the stage, Xiaogua was sobbing. Long Fun was so angry that his gums were almost broken and his fists were clenched. Was Qin Hao still a human? It was such a long knife, yet he had stabbed her without even making a sound of pain. This scene deeply shocked everyone. Whether it was the nobles, the ministers, the generals, or the leaders of the small sects, all of them gave Qin Hao a thumbs up at the same time. Roar, outside, looking at Qin Hao who had been stabbed twice, thousands of Imperial guards who were wearing armor and maintaining order in the arena raised the long spears in their hands at the same time and smashed them under their feet. Then, they clenched their right fists and placed them in front of their chests. They used the most noble military etiquette to express their respect for Qin Hao. This series of actions, without any orders, even made their commanders absent-minded. In fact, this salute was the military's etiquette to the current emperor of the Dragon Abyss. But now it was used on Qin Hao. However, the 3 commanders of the Imperial Guards standing in the distance did not reprimand nor did they stop them. Instead, they slowly clenched their fists and placed them in front of their chests like their own soldiers. Qin Hao's heroic act of stabbing himself for the 2 brothers had undoubtedly won the respect of these 3 commanders. Qin Hao! Damn it! Wang Gui and Tian Buguang clenched their fists at the same time. They were so angry that their teeth collided and the corners of their mouths twitched. Even the Imperial Guards and commanders of the Imperial Guards had submitted to Qin Hao's spirit. Even Tian Buguang's grandfather, Tian Shulin, had never enjoyed such high etiquette. Perhaps after the competition, even if Qin Hao did not win the championship, this story would spread throughout the Luoshui Empire and establish a supreme reputation. This was what Wang Gui and Tian Buguang did not want to see. Long Fun, you have to keep your word this time, or… Chapter 411. The respect that the soldiers of the Luo Water Army expressed to Qin Hao was sublime and could not be blasphemed. If Long Fen dared to go back on his words, it was equivalent to trampling on the Luo Shui soldiers. Senior Li, don't be angry. I didn't violate the rules of the competition. The eyes of the audience are clear. Long Fen's eyes flashed with anxiety. He panicked and hurriedly reminded the other party. Subconsciously, he looked at Dean Lu for help. Dean Lu immediately moved a few steps closer to the Luo Shui stage. Although he wasn't a match for Li Dazue, a king stage master, he couldn't watch Long Fen fall into a passive situation. Moreover, I didn't say that I wouldn't let Xiaogua go. At this time, Long Fen said again. Humph! Li Dazue snorted and dispersed the energy in his palm. However, he didn't step down from the stage. It seemed that he was waiting for Long Fen to release Xiaogua. Seeing the other party stop, Long Fen breathed out a sigh of relief. He had a feeling of escaping from death. Immediately, a sinister smile appeared on his lips. He pointed at Qin Hao, who had been stabbed twice, and said, I can let him go, but Xiaogua has insulted and despised me more than once. As the big brother, shouldn't you apologize? He should apologize to me? This isn't too much, right? Long Fen, don't push your luck. Xiaogua roared angrily. His heart was bleeding. It was his stubbornness that had once again implicated Qin Hao. Okay, I sincerely apologize to you on behalf of my brother, Qin Hao said. His voice was weak and feeble. Didn't you have enough to eat? Shout louder, I didn't hear you clearly. Long Fen proudly raised his head. Qin Hao clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He staggered a few steps towards the Luo Shui stage. At this time, he had lost too much blood. He staggered as he walked. Every step left a bloody footprint on the ground. He shouted, I, Qin Hao, apologize to you on behalf of my brother. This shout was extremely loud, like a deep thunderclap that spread throughout the arena. Because he had used enough inner strength, the wound had ruptured, and the rate of bleeding had sped up. From afar, Ouyang Hong shook his head in grief and indignation. As the dean of the Qi Yang Academy, he had to watch as his students and disciples were humiliated by others. Ha ha! Xiaogua heard it. Your trash boss apologized to me and begged me to let you go. Fine, I'll be magnanimous and won't bicker with a lowly person like you. One last condition, Qin Hao, if you kneel down to me, I'll immediately let your brother go. This time I'll do as I say. Here we are. Long Fen was overjoyed. Qi Yang was the first to kneel before him in the Rising Star competition in front of tens of thousands of people. It was really exciting. How much face would he have if he told others about it in the future? It would be the glory of a lifetime. Rumble. Long Fen's rude request was like a club smashing on everyone's head. Kneel in public? On the field? There were so many Luo Shui's big shots as witnesses. If he really kneeled, Qin Hao would not be able to raise his head for the rest of his life. It would be a lifelong humiliation. A man had gold under his knees. As a person, he had to have a backbone. Moreover, Qin Hao was also considered a big shot. He had his own pride. Many disciples and elders felt disdain for Long Fen on the stage. He was really a scum. How could he humiliate others like this? As soon as he said this, Qin Hao fell into a momentary daze. How could the great Dendi kneel to others? Not to mention Long Fen, who was like dung. Even those famous emperor-level opponents in his previous life were not qualified to receive Qin Hao's knee. Even when he was trapped in the God Burial Valley and was surrounded by dozens of the continent's top experts, Qin Hao did not even frown, let alone kneel. Ha ha ha! After a long time, Qin Hao raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter was wild and unruly. However, it was also filled with sadness. It made the people present sigh. Okay, I will kneel to you. I am willing to bend my waist for my brother. Crack. Qin Hao flicked his finger. A sharp light appeared on the tip of his finger and shook the 4-foot-long heavy saber in front of his chest. One strike. This middle-grade weapon was broken into 2 pieces. The audience was thunderous. What kind of astonishing finger strength was this? After long Sanjin saw this, he cried 3 times and fainted due to the pain in his heart. However, Qin Hao suddenly clenched his fist. A vigorous internal force forced the 2 sabers out of his chest. Swoosh! Swoosh! The sabers turned into white light. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or not. They directly attacked Wang Gui and Tian Buguang, who were watching the show. The 2 white sabers broke the air with a sharp sound. In just a flash, they were already in front of them. They were extremely fast. Wang Gui and Tian Buguang were shocked. They raised their hands and swept out orange energy, shattering the white sabers on the spot. It seemed easy, but when they made contact, their hands were numb from the shock. Involuntarily, their faces changed slightly. From this strike, they could determine how strong Qin Hao's internal force was. Moreover, it was under the condition of excessive blood loss. However, at this moment, Qin Hao's legs were slowly bending. He was getting closer and closer to the ground. His eyes were filled with a monstrous flame and undisguised killing intent. On the stage, looking at Qin Hao kneeling in front of the crowd, Xiaogua was absent-minded. It was as if his heart was empty. Big Brother was a peerless hero. In Xiaogua's impression, this was completely impossible. He had never seen Qin Hao kneel. He didn't even dare to think about it. He remembered that when they were besieged at the auction, Qin Hao didn't kneel. Even if the Qin family was oppressed by the 3 elders of the Dan sect in Maple Leaf Town, and the muscular old man almost crushed Qin Hao's bones, it couldn't crush his spine and dignity. Xiaogua had only heard from Chen Wanqin that Qin Hao only knelt once when Dan Xian was about to die. That kneel was simply earth-shattering. Now, Qin Hao gave up his dignity and pride for him. He was willing to bend in front of a villain like Long Fun. There was a rumbling sound. It was as if a thunderbolt struck Xiaogua's mind. An uncontrollable anger, like a volcanic eruption, rushed to the sky from his chest. His body, which had been gradually shrinking due to his injuries, quickly swelled up again under this sudden burst of anger. His muscles were stronger, his arms were more powerful, and his body size quickly recovered. The sleeping beast was awakened again, but Long Fen didn't have the slightest sense of danger. Instead, he let out a crazy laugh. His heart was bubbling with happiness. This useless big brother of Xiaogua actually knelt in front of him. He was really an incompetent waste. He didn't have a bit of courage. He really wasn't a man. Qin Hao's knee was only a finger away from the ground. Many people couldn't help but cover their eyes. The older generation shook their heads and sighed. Long Fen, I want your life. An earth-shattering roar suddenly erupted, jolting everyone back to their senses. Then, a strong hand like an iron clamp firmly grasped Long Fen's thigh. Under the grip, bang! The dragon scales on his leg were crushed. Long Fen immediately let out a shrill scream. His leg was almost broken. He was in so much pain that his face was distorted. Then, his heart was even more shocked. Chapter 412. How is this possible? Accompanied by a panicked shout, Long Fen waved his hands wildly above his head to maintain his balance. He was shocked to find that Qi Xiaogua, who had been beaten half to death by him, had a miraculous increase in Qi Xiaogua's aura. Not only did Long Fen lift him up, Long Fen even broke his dragon scales. This was absolutely impossible in the past. Even Xiaogua at his peak couldn't break Long Fen's upgraded dragon scales. This scene immediately made Qin Hao stop kneeling and look at the stage in surprise. You can insult me, but you can't insult my big brother. He saved my life. Accompanied by a hoarse voice, a layer of turbulent orange air waves spread out from Xiaogua's body, and his body instantly expanded. His height, which had dropped to about 2 meters, rose to 4 meters, and even exceeded 4 meters. His muscles were also several times stronger than before. With a swoosh, a sharp horn drilled out of Xiaogua's head, emitting a sharp cold light. He had broken through. In extreme rage, his strength had broken through to a 5-star mortal saint. And it wasn't just a breakthrough in strength. His original soul had also broken through the shackles and successfully passed the fourth tribulation, completing a new transformation. In fact, after a Yuan cultivator had an original soul, as time passed, his control of the original soul would continue to improve and become stronger. When Xiaogua was in the gathering Yuan realm, he forcefully broke through the first tribulation, causing him to be delirious. Later, he passed 3 tribulations in the Wild Dragon Academy and reached the 4th tribulation level. Now, his vigorous bull demon body was at the 5th tribulation, and Long Fun's original soul was still at the 4th tribulation. In the blink of an eye, the two's combat power had undergone an earth-shaking change again. This time, it was a dramatic Xiaogua surpassing Long Fun. Could even be said that the two were not on the same level at all. Brother Melon has profited from a disaster. Qin Hao saw through the situation in front of him at a glance, and showed a forced smile, revealing a gratified look. He knew that Xiaogua was going to make a comeback after all. Then there was no need to guess the result of the competition. Victory! Immediately, Qin Hao's mind relaxed. He was paralyzed below the arena, and blood quickly flowed out. This frightened Yi Shuihan and the others. One by one, they took out medicinal pills. There were all kinds of top-grade blood-replenishing pills, qi-replenishing pills, 9-flower jade-dew pills, and desperately stuffed them into Qin Hao's mouth. Although Qin Hao had suppressed his injury and his life was not in danger, he was still seriously injured. It was highly likely that he would not be able to fight in the following matches. On the stage, Xiaogua grabbed Long Fun's thigh with one hand and slowly lifted him up. As Long Fun screamed desperately, Xiaogua fiercely punched Long Fun's calf. Crack! This punch forcefully broke the bones in his leg. Ah! Long Fun had never thought that his act of humiliating Qin Hao would be exchanged for an even more abnormal Xiaogua. At this moment, he finally understood what it meant to seek death, and what it meant to eat one's own medicine. Impossible, I don't believe it. Furious Dragon revolving / break for me. After being severely injured, Long Fun chose to counterattack immediately. If he did not counterattack, he would be in more danger. His body swayed, dragging a thick tail behind his buttocks. It swept Xiaogua's waist like a fierce steel whip. The tail was wrapped in vigorous primordial qi, and along the way, the space was turbulent. The strength was obviously very shocking. Bang! Xiaogua stretched out his big hand and firmly grasped the huge tail. Then, with one hand holding the tail and the other holding Long Fun's broken leg, his body spun rapidly on the stage like a spinning top for hundreds of rounds. Long Fun was swung around until he was dizzy and saw stars. His blood kept rushing to his head, and his consciousness was blurred. At this moment, Xiaogua and Long Fun suddenly relaxed. Swish! Long Fun shot out like an arrow and smashed into the distant wall of the imperial city. If he smashed into it, he would undoubtedly fall out of the arena and lose. Damn it! The blade-like wind whistled in his ears. Even though he knew he was flying out, Long Fun's body could not stop. Using all his strength, he clasped his dragon claws in front of him and condensed a ball of light. Long Fun forcefully pushed the ball of light in the opposite direction toward the wall of the imperial palace. Raging Dragon's soaring wave. Boom! With a shocking explosion, the ball of light exploded on the wall. The ground shook and the towering wall collapsed, emitting a cloud of dust. However, with the force of this push, Long Fun's body quickly flew back and landed on the Luoshui stage. Suddenly, the thrilling scene made the 8 spectators break out in cold sweat. Good, I was afraid you wouldn't come back. Qi Xiaogua roared, and with a flick of his sturdy thigh, Xiongqua's body flew towards Long Fun. This time, Long Fun was shocked. He had just used his ultimate move, and before he could catch his breath, bang! A fist heavily smashed on his chin, throwing Long Fun, who was flying in balance, vertically into the sky. Then, Sayogwa increased his vitality and shot up like a cannonball. On his 5-meter-tall giant body, 2 huge illusory wings spread out. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with Long Fun. Left hook, right hook, straight punch. Swinging fist, like a storm, it bombarded Long Fun's face, making his teeth fly and his head shake crazily. At the same time, the dragon's scales on his face were broken and fell off. His entire head was badly mutilated. At this moment, the sky was filled with Long Fun's blood and his heart-wrenching screams resounded through the sky. Tens of thousands of boys and girls looked at the fierce beast in the sky and swallowed their saliva crazily. Their faces were filled with horror. Every time Sayogwa punched, a large ripple of light would appear. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to take even one punch. Even Long Fun, who had the evil dragon soul, was about to die. So strong. Wang Gui clenched his fists nervously and looked up. His eyes flashed with horror. On the side, Tianbugwang's face was trembling crazily. According to Sayogwa's current aura, his strength was not inferior to the two of them. It was all the stupid Long Fun's doing. It was simply a sin. He had created such a strong opponent. I admit defeat. In the sky, Long Fun was beaten beyond recognition. His body had returned to its normal height. The scales on his body had disappeared, revealing bruises. But before he could say the word, admit defeat, he saw Sayogwa put his fists together and hit Long Fun's head with all his might. Bang! Long Fun fell down and smashed into the Luoshui stage. A mouthful of blood mixed with broken internal organs was spat out from his mouth. Chapter 4:13. Dean Lu naturally wanted to save Long Fun. It was impossible for him to watch Long Fun lose his life in the arena. He shouted, "Stop!" and flew up with surging energy. No way! Upon seeing this, Ouyang Hong's body flashed and blocked Long Fun. Just like how Long Fun tried to stop him, he sent out a palm strike. Immediately, the two withered old hands fiercely collided with each other, and they were both forced back. However, Li Dazue, who was standing beside Long Fun, turned a blind eye. He even snorted coldly and turned his face to the side. This was completely different from when Sayogwa was in danger. In his heart, he despised Long Fun for being a treacherous person. In an instant, Long Fun's face was ashen. He knew that he couldn't escape and didn't even have the chance to admit defeat. Dean Lu wanted to save him, but it was too late. Li Dazue simply ignored his existence. Suddenly, there was a burst of sound above his head. A huge shadow shrouded him. Sayogwa's feet stepped heavily on Long Fun's chest. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. The blow that landed shattered Long Fun's chest. It was so painful that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This move was undoubtedly giving Long Fun a taste of his own medicine. "Junior brother Xiaogua, please give me a way out. I admit your head. When you stepped on me, did you ever give me a way out? When you forced my brothers to stab you, did you ever think of giving me a way out? When you asked my brother to apologize, why didn't you give me a way out? Especially, you actually forced my brother to kneel. He doesn't even kneel to the heavens, but in order to save me, he knelt to a villain like you. This is simply unforgivable." With incomparable anger, Sayogwa punched into Long Fun's dantian. This punch exploded, and the energy directly shattered Long Fun's dantian. From then on, the genius of a generation turned into a useless waste. "You are actually so ruthless to shatter my dantian?" Long Fun said in pain. "I'm ruthless? Haha!" Sayogwa sneered coldly. His big hand grabbed Long Fun's neck and lifted him up. The corner of his mouth slowly curled up, looking somewhat ferocious. His eyes suddenly sharpened as the sharp horn on his head ruthlessly pierced into Long Fun's chest. Moreover, There was also a majestic orange light that flowed into Qi Xiaoguo's horn along with it. A tragic howl rang out. Long Fun's entire body twitched crazily as if his soul was being torn apart. Moreover, a sorrowful dragon roar came from his body. This dragon roar was very angry at first, but then it gradually weakened and finally dissipated completely. When it dissipated, Long Fun's entire body went limp like mud. It was as if all his vitality had been exhausted. Despicable Xiaogua! You dare to disperse Long Fun's origin soul, and you don't even care about the friendship between schoolmates. I want you to die without a burial ground. Below the stage, Dean Lu let out a shocking roar. He could no longer maintain his composure. The strength of a heavenly saint surged out violently as he rushed up desperately. Not only did Xiaogua cripple Long Fun, but he also dispersed his origin soul. This would make Long Fun's life worse than death. Wantonly breaking the rules of the arena. Get lost. Before Dean Lu could rush up, a red light from Li Dazhou's hand slammed into his body. Dean Lu immediately flew 10 meters high like a kite with a broken string and fell heavily on the ground, while spurting out blood. One move, heavily injuring a heavenly saint. Below the stage, the Starry Moon Academy's dean and the 10 Directions Academy's dean shuddered at the same time. As expected of a King stage expert, this Dean Lu was simply courting death. I'm ruthless? I don't care about the friendship between schoolmates? Haha. When Long Fun bullied me in the academy, why didn't you let him care about the friendship between schoolmates? Did he treat me as his junior brother? Xiaogua said coldly as he dispersed his aura. Following a faint sound of a bull's roar, his figure returned to normal. His body gradually returned to its original state, turning back into that determined young man. Xiaogua! Kill me! Kill me! Long Fun crazily shouted, his eyes filled with hatred. Kill you? Xiaogua coldly glanced at Long Fun on the ground and shook his head. Sorry, the current you is like an ant. You're not qualified, get lost. After speaking, he kicked Long Fun off the stage towards the Wild Dragon Academy's spectator stand. After Long Fun fell, there was almost no elder or disciple who went to catch him. Everyone even stayed far away. Their faces were very strange, with a hint of disdain. If it was before, they would naturally be willing to use their hot faces to stick to Long Fun's cold butt. But now it was just as Xiaogua said. Long Fun was not qualified at all. Alright kid, you win, get down. Li Dazhou let out a long sigh. It was really a heart-stopping battle. The final result was also out of everyone's expectations, but the reason for this result could be said to be Qin Hao's doing. What a rare good lad. Li Dazhou looked at Qin Hao, who was limp below the stage, revealing an expression of admiration. Big brother! Xiaogua jumped to Qin Hao's side, his eyes glowing red, his heart filled with gratitude. Congratulations! You've won the competition as you wished. Qin Hao smiled with difficulty and stood up again with the help of Yi Shuihan. However, his body was extremely weak and his legs were trembling. It was obvious that he was holding on, not wanting Xiaogua to worry. Yes, I won, it's all because of Big Brother's strength, Xiaogua said with tears in his eyes. As he spoke, he looked at Li Dazhou nervously. He had won as he had wished, but he had pushed Qin Hao into the abyss, because next it was Qin Hao's turn to go on stage. In his current state, he was going to fight with Wang Gui, a super genius with a soul source. He would not rest until he died. I gave you strength? Haha. Qin Hao shook his head. However, when I'm in danger, who can give me strength? Thinking of this, a white handkerchief appeared in his hand out of thin air. Qin Hao slowly opened it. There was a strand of black hair inside. Accompanied by a gentle breeze, a faint fragrance floated from this strand of hair. This smell. It was very familiar and nostalgic. After smelling it, Qin Hao's spirit was shaken, his weak state instantly filled with fighting spirit. Squeak. He firmly grasped the strand of hair in his hand. This was the only thing left behind by Xiao Han before she left. Next round, Qin Hao, Wang Gui. Let's invite the two contestants to the stage. Suddenly, Li Dazhou's call came. It was as if the king of hell was urging him. No! Boss, don't go up. Brother Qin Hao, you really can't fight anymore. This sentence made Yi Shuihan, Nailan Li, and the others very nervous. At the same time, they firmly grasped Qin Hao's hand. Among the top 5 contestants, Qin Hao's strength was recognized as the weakest. Moreover, for Xiaogua, he had sacrificed a lot of blood. At this time, Wang Gui was undoubtedly taking advantage of Qin Hao's weakness to fight. Big brother, for this round, please let me fight on your behalf. Xiaogua's eyes were firm. He looked at the stage, as if he was asking for Li Dazhou's permission. Qin Hao was in a weak state at this time. Chapter 4:14. The spectators nodded at the same time in tacit understanding. This move was feasible. If Qin Hao was not an idiot, he should understand that fighting with Wang Gui in his current state was undoubtedly suicidal. As the host of the competition, Li Dazhou sympathized with Qin Hao and wanted to help him. However, there were rules in the competition. The dignity of the royal family could not be trampled, unless Wang Gui agreed to change his opponent. Therefore, Li Dazhou looked at Wang Gui with an inquiring gaze. At this time, Wang Gui had already gone on stage with a cold smile. Change his opponent? Did he think he was an idiot? Even Long Fun was no match for Xiaogua, and was beaten from a genius to a trash. Wang Gui was not so stupid. Fighting with Xiaogua now was no different from courting death. Moreover, he and Qin Hao had an irreconcilable feud. It was a good opportunity to kill him while he was down. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He could kill Qin Hao and avoid Xiaogua. Why not? I don't agree, Wang Gui said without hesitation, the smile on his face getting wider. At the same time, Qin Hao also said, I don't agree. After saying that, he jumped on stage. From the moment Tang Fei climbed onto Wang Gui's thigh, the shadow of her had always shrouded Qin Hao's head. In order to defeat Qin Hao in the 4-nation martial arts competition, Dan Xian had risked his life to refine a 6-revolution origin spirit pill for Qin Hao, so that his disciple could wash away the humiliation and live an indomitable life. It had dragged on until today. Now he said he would let go? That was impossible. Below the stage, Yi Shuihan and the others were shocked. They were careless and Qin Hao jumped on stage. They had already seen that when he landed, his legs suddenly went soft and he staggered a few times before he could barely stand firm. Boss, you're silly. Brother Qin Hao, come down quickly. They were anxious and urged Qin Hao to get off the stage immediately. Big brother, why are you doing this? Xiaogua said absent-mindedly, his face full of confusion. In fact, Qin Hao didn't have to worry about Wang Gui at all, even if he had to give up the whole game. At least there was still Xiaogua around? According to the strength he displayed after leveling up, he could also become the champion. Killing Wang Gui to avenge Qin Hao was a piece of cake. It was meaningless for Qin Hao to go on stage at this moment, but he was playing with his life. How foolish! Why? Qin Hao slowly turned his head and looked seriously at Xiaogua with his bright eyes. He smiled faintly and said, just as you said, my family is waiting for me to go back and save them. My 4th uncle, 3rd uncle, brother Yu, my grandfather and the master who lost his life and was cruelly frozen in an ice sculpture in order to cultivate me. How can I give up so easily? Please give me a reason to give up. Not to mention, Xiao Han was forcibly taken away by Gongsun Chongqing in order to protect Qin Hao and the Fengli Temple. Qin Hao would never forget Duan Ziju's disdainful look. If he couldn't even survive this small rising star competition, how could he go to Beijiang's Daliao to look for Xiao Han? How could he be qualified to meet the wise and mighty Emperor Xiao? If Emperor Shao knew that Qin Hao was backing out of this small competition, would he still want to take his precious daughter away from him? No way. Especially when Qin Hao had sworn that he would never let anyone look down on him again. If he couldn't even defeat Wang Gui, how could he face Duan Ziju in the future? Duan Ziju might have already become a heavenly saint or even a king realm expert. Could it be that he had to experience the feeling of being looked down on again? Big brother, you are too stubborn. Xiaogua couldn't bear to see him like this. Stubborn? Sometimes in life, you should be stubborn for once. You would rather regret it than have any regrets. Qin Hao didn't say anything else. He looked at Wang Gui. Good lad. How bold! No matter if he wins or loses, I, Lu Jiudao, will remember the name Qin Hao for the rest of my life. Sounds of praise could be heard from all directions. Although many people thought that Qin Hao was stupid, they admired his courage. Especially when he said, "Sometimes in life, you should be stubborn for once. You would rather regret it than have any regrets." Many people fell into deep thought. In fact, sometimes when one was just one step away from one's goal, one would lose everything because of cowardice. This would cause all of one's previous efforts to be wasted and leave a lifetime of regret. This was also the pain of many people present. If I had the courage to confess to Xiaohua back then, maybe I wouldn't be alone today, and she wouldn't be unhappy. If I could work a little more, my strength would definitely reach a higher level. Boo-hoo. If my parents were still alive, I could be more filial to them. Suddenly, cries could be heard from the audience. Many people regretted it. Unfortunately, there are no ifs, especially in the face of death. To be honest, I was afraid that you were a coward and didn't dare to enter the Luoshui stage. Since you're here to seek death, I'll be merciful and grant you your wish. Wang Gui's face was trembling. He clenched his fists until they turned pale. He thought to himself, if I didn't run away back then, maybe father and brother. If I didn't run away, I would be the one who died. When he thought of this, Wang Gui's anger erupted violently. It was all Qin Hao's fault. He had to pay the price. Let the battle begin. Seeing that he couldn't stop them, Li Dazue sighed and left, leaving the stage to the two of them. However, he didn't think Qin Hao would win this battle. So what if he didn't have any regrets? He could only fight to his death. He was so stupid. Ha ha! How are you going to fight me in your current state? Not to mention the current you, even if you were at your peak, I wouldn't put you in my eyes. Black Tortoise True Soul, appear. With a loud shout, Wang Gui opened his arms. Behind him, orange smoke emerged. The smoke gradually turned into an old turtle with a thick shell on its back. It was huge and had a radius of 5 meters. That was Wang Gui's origin soul, Black Tortoise. As soon as his origin soul appeared, his defense instantly increased. On the surface of his body, there were faint patterns of a turtle shell. It seemed that his skin was as hard as steel and was incomparably sturdy. In an instant, the audience was in an uproar and woke up from their stupor. After all, Wang Gui was a super genius with an origin soul. In this battle, Qin Hao was trying to break a rock with an egg. It was not worth it. He would probably lose his life. At this moment, everyone seemed to have become Qin Hao. When facing Wang Gui, they felt pressure and fear. They also felt deep regret. You think I'm weak? You want to take advantage of me? You think I'll lose if you do that? Then you're wrong. Qin Hao was not afraid at all. There was a flash of light in his palm, and a stalk of grass with lush spiritual energy appeared. It was exuding a strong vitality. On top of it, there were 2 sparkling and translucent leaves. Similarly, there was spiritual energy flowing on the leaves. It looked like an immortal herb. Vegetable leaves again? He's eating it again. Slap. A few disciples with poor eyesight had just opened their mouths when an old man slapped one of them. His mouth was swollen. He said angrily, "That's the Saint Violet Orchid. It's a panacea. One leaf is enough to raise one's level. After saying that, the old man was shocked. Earlier, he had seen Qin Hao eat 2 leaves and step from a 1-star mortal saint to a 3-star mortal saint. He didn't expect Qin Hao to have more. Chapter 4:15. The top 5 contestants in the championship were all 5-star. Long Fun, who had been defeated, was the strongest, a 6-star mortal saint. Once Qin Hao consumed the Saint Violet Orchid, he would be ranked among the top geniuses in terms of cultivation base. He would have the ability to compete with the others. Everyone knew that when a primordial spirit cultivator advanced, the massive amount of spirit qi in the world would remove all the injuries on the body, allowing the person to recover to their best state. It turned out that the Saint Violet Orchid was Qin Hao's trump card. This indeed shocked many people. The Saint Violet Orchid was precious enough to be called a trump card. Even so, the old man still shook his head. If Qin Hao consumed the Saint Violet Orchid, he would be able to recover his stamina and vitality. However, he would need a few months to recover the large amount of blood that he had lost. Therefore, he had to end the battle quickly. It would be best if he could end the battle in one move. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. No matter what, Qin Hao still has a chance to gamble. Oh, Yang Hong murmured, his heart thumping nervously. Success or failure depended on this. As he spoke, Qin Hao clenched his fist and threw the entire holy violet orchid into his mouth. He swallowed the entire plant along with its root. He could not waste any of the sacred herb. In a trance, a warm stream flowed from his throat into his body, nourishing Qin Hao's inner palace. Then, the sweet spring turned into thousands of streams, extending to his limbs and bones along his meridians. Qin Hao's flesh and blood greedily devoured the Saint Violet Orchid, absorbing the spirit qi in a frenzy. His aura also began to soar in front of everyone. In the arena, Qin Hao was enveloped by a sacred orange glow. Intermediate 3-star. Peak 3-star. Breakthrough to 4-star. Peak 4-star. Breakthrough to 5-star. Intermediate 5-star. Peak 5-star. Following a series of flashes of light, Qin Hao's strength rose from 3-star to peak 5-star in the blink of an eye. This height immediately shocked everyone. It could be said that it was the highest among all the contestants. He was on the same level as Tian Buguang, who was known as the number 1 of the younger generation in the imperial city. In addition, Qin Hao was covered with injuries. The bloodstains on his clothes were completely purified under the holy light. The wounds on his ribs were completely healed, leaving not a single scar. Qin Hao also changed from a pale and weak state to full of vigor. As expected of one of Yao Lao's treasures, it has the effect of regenerating flesh and bones. Qin Hao clenched his fist lightly. It was very strong. The origin energy that he had not been able to replenish even after eating several bottles of pills was now surging like the ocean in his dantian, filled with surging power. However, this power required a strong body to push it forward. Due to the large amount of blood loss, Qin Hao knew that he would definitely be unable to continue. In that case, he could only decide life and death with a single strike. Looking at the reborn Qin Hao in front of him, Wang Gui was so shocked that he took a few steps back. However, in terms of momentum, he was already at a disadvantage. You didn't expect this, did you? In fact, there are many things that you have not thought of. Qin Hao's palm suddenly swept downward. Whoosh! A silver sword that exuded moonlight appeared in his hand. The tip of the sword was slanted to the ground, and a heart-palpitating sword sound was gently emitted. Is Saint Violet Orchid my trump card? I guess so. However, this purple meteorite sword is even stronger than Saint Violet Orchid. It is only a little bit away from the grade of a sacred tool. In addition, my great void cauldron is not just a decoration. After the upgrade, the opportunity to activate the Golden Bell armor has been refreshed. Once it is activated, it will not be difficult to block the attack of a profound sage. In other words, Qin Hao now has the purple meteorite sword to attack and the golden bell armor to retreat. He is almost invincible. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. When Wang Gui saw this smile, it made him feel even more fearful. He clearly remembered that Qin Hao had once smiled like this and rushed into the battle between Yuning Shang and Ouyang Wusan, who were both profound sages, as if he had gone mad. He directly defeated Ouyang Wusan. At that time, the other party only had the cultivation of a profound sage. Now, he was smiling again. After breaking through to the 5-star mortal sage realm, the first thing he did was smile at Wang Gui. Wang Gui felt his hair stand on end. Pretentious. So what if you have a trump card? I have the Black Tortoise Origin Spirit. The gap between our origin spirits is destined to forever be under my feet. Absorb the origin spirit. Facing Qin Hao's powerful aura, Wang Gui felt that the mountain was too big. He had no choice but to use his ultimate move. He merged his origin spirit with his body and transformed into a half-human, half-beast combat form. Only in this way could he increase his defensive power and block Qin Hao's upgraded attack. As he spoke, the huge illusory old turtle behind him turned into a wisp of white smoke and drilled into his back. Wang Gui's appearance also underwent a huge change in front of everyone. First, his forehead became more and more protruding. Not only was it protruding, but it was also bald. His hair fell down and turned into an ugly bald head. Then, his white palms turned bluish-gray and full of wrinkles, like a turtle's palms. The most obvious change was his body. His clothes were torn to pieces and burst open. Under the screams of countless girls below the stage, he was covered by a huge turtle shell. From a handsome young man, he transformed into an ugly bald monster with a big pot on his back. In an instant, it really made everyone's eyes pop out. However, what followed was an even more powerful aura. At this moment, he could defeat an ordinary 7-star mortal saint. But an ordinary 7-star mortal saint could do nothing to him. This was because he had a turtle shell on him that was comparable to the heavenly canon divine armor. Ha ha! I'm too handsome. This is my Black Tortoise divine art. I didn't fight you at the 4-nation martial arts tournament not because I was afraid of you, but because my divine art was not complete. Now I'll return it to you with interest. Wang Gui proudly pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said. As his incarnation took shape, his confidence increased 100 times. Especially the turtle shell on his body, it made him feel safe. He felt that even if he stood there and let Qin Hao hit him, the other party would not be able to break his defense. Is that so? Qin Hao also sneered. A scarlet light flashed on the purple meteorite sword. This was the power of the sword heart. One had to admit that an ordinary 7-star mortal saint might not be able to do anything to Wang Gui. But unfortunately, Qin Hao was not an ordinary 7-star mortal saint. He cultivated the inextinguishable samsara art and had many secret techniques. Qin Hao's current battle strength was comparable to an 8-star mortal saint. On top of that, he had the purple meteorite sword that was comparable to a low-grade saint artifact. In his eyes, this turtle shell could not withstand a single blow. May I ask, how much stronger do you think your shell is compared to Feng Qingyang's heavenly canon divine armor? Qin Hao chuckled, revealing his white teeth. What do you mean? Wang Gui was stunned. In all honesty, his shell was definitely stronger than Feng Qingyang's heavenly canon divine armor. Although it was not much stronger, it was still the power of the soul. Wang Gui's cultivation realm was also one level higher than Feng Qingyang's. If one were to estimate, his defense was about twice as strong as the heavenly canon divine armor. This was enough for Wang Gui to laugh proudly. If he were to fight Feng Qingyang, that kid would only be able to take a beating. What did Qin Hao mean by asking this? Chapter 4:16. However, the sword did not stab the turtle's shell. Instead, it pierced the turtle's neck in a tricky manner. There was a hint of electricity in the sword, and it was so fast that it was impossible to cover one's ears with it. When he attacked, there was no sign of weakness. Many of the spectators were astonished. In their opinion, Qin Hao was definitely aiming for the turtle's shell. Just like when he shattered the heavenly cannon divine armor, he was attacking the turtle's back continuously. Sooner or later, cracks would appear. No one expected that he would aim for Wang Gui's neck. His sword was so fast and accurate that it put his opponent in danger in one move. Wang Gui was caught off guard by the sudden attack, but he did not panic. His neck suddenly shrank, and his head retreated into his shell. Qin Hao's sword missed, and he immediately pulled back a few meters. Bastard! Wang Gui's head popped out with a furious roar. His face was livid with anger. Qin Hao took the initiative to attack him? Even a 7-star mortal saint was no match for Wang Gui. Qin Hao, a mere 5-star mortal saint, dared to be so presumptuous. In the eyes of the spectators, Wang Gui's action of shrinking his neck was very indecent, and he felt humiliated. A pair of wrinkled palms waved, and a huge hammer appeared in Wang Gui's hand out of thin air. The hammer was like a big hammer, and it was 4 meters long. The head of the hammer was black and looked very fierce. As soon as it appeared, it exuded the aura of rock and earth, and there were inscriptions flickering on it. It was not ordinary. Qin Hao, have a taste of the power of my sky-shaking hammer. Wang Gui clenched the hammer with both hands and smashed it forward. A turbulent shockwave quickly spread towards Qin Hao's position. Wherever the shockwave touched, a layer of rock appeared on the Luoshui platform. Qin Hao did not dare to be careless. He immediately slashed the purple meteorite sword under his feet, using sword chi to block the shockwave. However, after this move, the purple meteorite sword was immediately wrapped by a layer of rock, and it lost its light. Stone engravings? Qin Hao was slightly stunned and his hand trembled. Bang! The rock layer around the sword was shattered, and the fragments fell to the ground. The purple meteorite sword's light shone again. You have good eyesight. That's right. This hammer of mine is the most precious treasure of the 10 Directions outer yard. It's ranked first in the weapon depository, and it has the stone engraving of an inscription master on it. Once swept by my vital chi, regardless of whether it is an ant or a flea, their bodies will all be petrified. They can only wait to be slaughtered by me. How can you compare to me? Wang Gui said proudly. He had a turtle shell that was twice as strong as the heavenly cannon divine armor. With the sky-shaking hammer in hand, Qin Hao would definitely die. When he thought of this, he started laughing maniacally. Below the stage, the principal of the School of 10 Directions stroked his beard, a smug look in his eyes. Since the Mad Dragon Academy could take out the heavenly cannon divine armor, then his 10 Directions Academy also had treasures. It was a pity that Qin Hao was the #1 person in Qiyang Empire. He only had a silver sword that was as thin as a piece of paper. Just from the appearance and size of the two weapons, the power of the heaven-shaking hammer was probably dozens of times that of the silver sword. Poor Qiyang Empire student, you deserve to be useless for the rest of your life. The principal of the School of 10 Directions smiled amiably. The capital of the academy was also a reflection of its strength. Is that so? Qin Hao smiled coldly and raised his longsword. With a swoosh, he swept out a half-moon sword light and arrived in front of Wang Gui in the blink of an eye. It seemed to be a casual attack, but it caused the expression of sword young master below the stage to change drastically. He muttered absent-mindedly, sword-drawing technique? Moreover, the concept of this sword-drawing technique had far surpassed sword young master's level. It was a technique that he had never seen before, and it seemed to be an upgraded version. You overestimate yourself. Heaven-shaking chaotic dance. Wang Gui did not take it seriously at all. He raised his sledgehammer again, and his body spun quickly. As he spun, the distance between him and Qin Hao became shorter and shorter. It seemed that not only did he want to use this move to shatter the half-moon sword light, but he also wanted to smash Qin Hao together. However, the result disappointed him. There was a loud bang. As soon as the heaven-shaking hammer came into contact with the sword light, it exploded into pieces and shot in all directions. Wang Gui's spinning body was also shaken to the point that it stopped on the spot. Only the bare handle of the hammer was left in his hand, and his eyes were empty. Damn, does it have to be so fake? He shattered a high-grade weapon with inscriptions with one attack? It's just a casual sword strike. A large number of disciples below the stage shouted in disbelief. A casual sword strike? Haha, a group of mediocre people with the naked eye. Sword young master snorted disdainfully and suddenly clenched his fist. He knew very well that Qin Hao was not just a casual sword strike. The moment he stepped onto the stage, he was already condensing his sword intent. After taking out the purple meteorite sword, he was ready to use the sword drawing technique. Qin Hao deliberately talked to Wang Gui for so long because he was suppressing his primordial qi. His primordial qi was too strong. Sword young master had a faint feeling that the primordial qi of an 8-star mortal saint was only this strong. Qin Hao was indeed hiding his strength. You actually shattered my treasure. After a long time, Wang Gui's eyes widened as he roared with all his might. Shatter your treasure? No, no, no. I want to shatter your life. Wang Gui is finished. After saying that, Qin Hao moved again. His figure flashed and appeared behind Wang Gui again. Once again, he stabbed his sword at Wang Gui. However, this time, the sword was not aimed at Wang Gui's neck, but the shell behind him. However, Wang Gui did not think so. He was sure that Qin Hao would definitely stab his neck again. Qin Hao's silver sword was so powerful that it shattered his skyshaker hammer in one strike. Wang Gui did not dare to take it head-on. He shrunk his neck and immediately drilled his head into his shell. His vision was pitch black, but he felt very safe. On the other hand, what Qin Hao wanted was exactly this result. If Wang Gui did not shrink his neck, he would definitely resist and use his primordial qi to strengthen the defense of his shell. However, it was different now. Wang Gui had shrunk his head into his shell. No matter how Qin Hao attacked, he could not see it. Qin Hao's first strike was just to confuse Wang Gui. Clang! A ball of fire appeared. It accurately pierced Wang Gui's back waist. However, it was blocked by the turtle shell. Moreover, Qin Hao's arm was numb from the impact, and he took a few steps back. Wang Gui's turtle shell was extremely thick, and its defensive power was not to be underestimated. Wang Gui did not have it easy either. After being stabbed by Qin Hao, his body was almost directly sent flying. He slid on the arena like a piece of ice and could not stop. Qin Hao cultivated the indestructible samsara technique, so his arm strength was amazing. He directly stabbed Wang Gui off the arena. In an instant there were screams of surprise. Wang Gui was only half a meter away from the edge of the arena. F***CKU. Wang Gui finally came to his senses. He drilled his head out and roared angrily. A ferocious orange light immediately burst out from the tortoise shell. His gliding body rose up into the air and soared into the air above the arena. At the same time, a pair of illusory wings that were 3 meters long also grew out from under his ribs. He narrowly avoided the tragedy of falling off the arena. However, at this moment Wang Gui, who was flying in the air, looked extremely strange and nondescript. He was wearing a turtle shell and had wings on his back. The scene was very strange. A turtle with wings. Ha ha ha. Immediately, a burst of laughter sounded from below and spread throughout the Luoshui square. Thousands of young disciples pointed at Wang Gui and laughed at him unscrupulously. Chapter 4:17. Even an idiot could see that the heavy shell on Wang Gui's back had greatly affected his mobility and speed. He even recklessly flew into the sky and summoned his elemental wings. This undoubtedly increased the consumption of his elemental qi. At the same time, it also broke down his best defense to a certain extent. Everyone had an intuition that this was a trap that Qin Hao had long planned. He deliberately tricked Wang Gui. Next, Qin Hao used his actions to prove everyone's guess. He stepped on the Luo Shui platform and his body quickly rose. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with Wang Gui and rose far higher than his opponent. Floating high in the sky, a pair of divine elemental wings appeared behind Qin Hao's back. The purple meteorite sword in his hand was raised high, like a god standing in the sky. A ball of blazing flame spread from Qin Hao's arm to the entire sword, turning the purple meteorite sword into a flaming sword. Red Lotus Explosion Blade. An explosive roar shook the void. This attack shook heaven and earth. Qin Hao slashed down a wave of fire from afar, slashing towards Wang Gui. The wave of fire was dozens of meters long, as if it had burned through the sky. This was the powerful attack that cut off Old Man Guihai's arm during the trial at the explosive flame mountain. However, the difference in strength between Qin Hao and his opponent was too great, so he used the Red Lotus Fire. Now, he could no longer use the fire elemental energy of the Red Lotus Fire. However, this did not affect him in the slightest. Moreover, he used the Yuling art to display his elemental fire. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, the wave of fire bombarded Wang Gui's body, crushing him to the ground without any resistance. Midway, Wang Gui's thick shell was shattered in the raging fire, and he let out a shrill cry. When he landed, a deep sword wound appeared on his chest, revealing his bones. His flesh was torn open, and there was a burnt smell. Fresh blood gushed out. One sword. He killed the top genius of the 10 Directions outer yard. One sword. Wang Gui's proud black tortoise origin spirit was smashed to pieces. One sword. This deeply shocked the entire arena, causing it to become silent. Only Wang Gui's heart-wrenching screams echoed for a long time. He lost. Defeated so cleanly. A person who always boasted that he was superior to others, a super genius with a source spirit, had actually been defeated in the hands of an ordinary cultivator. Trash! On the spectator's stand, Tian Buguang crushed the fence in front of him. He had never expected that Wang Gui would be the one to be defeated in the end. Moreover, he was defeated by Qin Hao, who had lost too much blood. However, as an outsider, he understood. Wang Gui almost fell into Qin Hao's trap with every step he took. Regardless of whether it was the first stab to the neck, it was used to paralyze the opponent. The second sword pierced the turtle's shell to determine its defensive power. In the end, he was forced into the sky, forcing Wang Gui to open his origin wings and weaken the black tortoise source spirit. Everything was under Qin Hao's exquisite control. It was simply terrifying. Looks like I have no choice but to do it myself. Tian Buguang exhaled a long breath. In his heart, he believed that only he, who was publicly recognized as the number one of the younger generation in the imperial city, could kill Qin Hao, this rising star. Young Master Tian, why are you angry over a small character? If you want Qin Hao to die, I am very happy to do it. Suddenly, a strange voice sounded from behind him. Tian Buguang slowly turned around and saw the red-clothed man. Just with you? You also want to kill Qin Hao? Between the words, there was an undisguised ridicule. Even Wang Gui, a genius with a source spirit, was not Qin Hao's opponent. Who gave the red-clothed man the confidence to be so arrogant? Whether I have the ability or not, you will soon know. The red-clothed man laughed strangely. Seeing that the other side did not stop him, he cupped his hands and walked towards the Luo Shui stage. He indeed did not have a source spirit, but it did not mean that he was worse than Wang Gui. Sometimes, a person without a source spirit was more useful than a person with a source spirit. For example, now that Qin Hao had lost a lot of blood, when facing an opponent who had practiced the blood technique and could absorb the opponent's blood during battle, his face would definitely look good. After all, the red-clothed man who could absorb the opponent's blood was undoubtedly Qin Hao's nemesis at the moment. Qin Hao was already weak enough. He was just holding on for one breath. Once this breath dissipated, it would be the end. On the stage, Wang Gui's howls rang for a while. As Qin Hao slowly floated down with an icy expression, he finally realized the danger he was in. The deep hatred between the two could not be resolved. Since he had lost, Qin Hao had no reason to let him live. Qin Hao, listen to me. This is the Luo Shui stage. As long as the winner is decided, there is no need to fight to the death. We are all top students of the 4 great academies. We see each other all the time. Shaking hands, we are still good friends. I admit. Wang Gui was panicking. Unfortunately, before the word lose could leave his mouth, Qin Hao's foot landed on his mouth, cutting off his words. After this kick, Wang Gui's jaw was dislocated. He opened his mouth wide and couldn't make a sound. For Qin Hao, there was only one word to do: kill! How dare you, kid? Stop immediately! Seeing Qin Hao raise his sword, an unusually angry shout suddenly rang out. The shout came from the spectators' stand of Shifang Academy. It was the absolutely useless dean of Shifang who had humiliated the students of Qiyang University just now. He was also Wang Gui's master. His surname was Fang. His figure quickly swept up and rushed toward Qin Hao on the stage. Even before the end of the match was announced, he suddenly rushed to Qin Hao's back. Immediately, a palm that contained the weight of 10,000 kilograms smashed forward shamelessly. On the other hand, Ouyang Hong and Li Dazhou were caught off guard. They wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Of course, even if Dean Fang had 10,000 guts, he wouldn't dare to kill Qin Hao in front of so many people. The purpose of his actions was to force Qin Hao out of the way. That way, Wang Gui would be saved. As long as Qin Hao wasn't a fool, he would definitely give up on killing Wang Gui in order to protect himself. Although using this method would undoubtedly damage Dean Fang's reputation, it would be worth it as long as he could save Wang Gui. On the stage, Wang Gui couldn't speak when he saw his master attack, but he let out a strange laugh from his throat. His expression seemed to be mocking Qin Hao. His meaning was, "You can't kill me. You're unhappy, right? Ha ha." Qin Hao naturally noticed the sound behind him. However, it didn't change his determination to kill Wang Gui. Even if it was for Dan Xian. Whoosh! The silver sword swept across decisively. Wang Gui's gurgling stopped abruptly. His eyes were wide open in horror. He died with a grievance. A line of blood slowly appeared on his neck. Then, blood spurted out like a fountain, gushing out and dyeing the Luo Shui stage red. How dare you! Dean Fang's lungs were about to explode. He didn't hold back at all. A muffled bang was heard. Chapter 4:18. Old Fang, you actually dared to attack? Seeing that Qin Hao was mercilessly sent flying, Ouyang Hong was enraged. Like an eagle spreading its wings, he soared into the sky from the spectator's stand, turning into an afterimage. He never thought that Qin Hao's determination to kill Wang Gui would be so strong. He would rather abandon himself and slash down with his sword. He never thought that Principal Fang would ignore the rules of the competition and really attack Qin Hao. Qin Hao had made great contributions to the academy. In the past 20 years, he had led his team into the top 5 of the New Star competition. He was someone that Yao Lao valued greatly. If anything happened to him, how would he explain it to Yao Lao? Ouyang Hong also attacked without holding back. The strength of an 8-star heavenly saint was completely unleashed. With monstrous anger, He fiercely slammed his palm on Principal Fong's chest. "Old man, I'll destroy you!" Crack! Along with the sound of bones breaking, Principal Fong was stunned. After suffering a heavy blow, he followed Qin Hao and flew out of the arena. His cultivation was actually on par with Ouyang Hong, but this palm was too fast and he had used all his strength. Moreover, he was hit in the heart, which was the weakest point. Therefore, Ouyang Hong's palm took away half of his life. After landing on the ground, he rolled on the ground in a sorry state. Dark red blood sprayed all over the ground. It would probably take a few months for him to recover. Even if he recovered, it was very likely that he would suffer from some chronic illness. "Ouyang Hong, you attacked me so viciously? Despicable sneak attack, do you have any shame?" After a series of violent coughs, Principal Fong struggled to get up from the ground. His face was filled with anger. "I attacked you viciously? Do you think I have no shame?" Ouyang Hong was so angry that he laughed. He fiercely gritted his teeth and rushed up again. Mixed with vigorous yuan qi, he slammed his palm on Principal Fong's chest again. "Not only will I attack you viciously, but I will also kill you. Give me your life." "Stop! Stop!" Seeing this, Principal Lu and Principal Li of Star Moon Academy attacked at the same time. Two powerful palms stretched out and blocked the furious Ouyang Hong. At this moment, Dean Fong's face was pale with fright. Seeing Dean Lu and Dean Li standing firmly by his side, he heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. "Lu Bubi and the one surnamed Li, you want to go against me, right?" Ouyang Hong roared. Qin Hao had saved Sword Prince's life before. It was one thing for Star Moon Academy's headmaster Li to not be grateful to him, but instead, he was helping Qin Hao commit his crimes. Dean Fong was wrong, but it's not up to you, Ouyang Hong, to punish him. Even if he's punished, I don't think he deserves death, right? The two snorted coldly. Naturally, there was no need to mention Mad Dragon Academy's Dean Lu. Long Fin's defeat in Xiaogua's hands was almost entirely caused by Qin Hao alone. He must take revenge. As for Star Moon Academy's Dean Li, he was actually quite grateful to Qin Hao for saving Sword Prince. He could only blame Qin Hao's current performance for being too strong. He had lost so much blood and even killed a super genius like Wang Gui. He had already seriously threatened Tian Buguang's position and obstructed Tian Buguang's path to becoming the champion. If Qin Hao accidentally died, that would naturally be for the best. "You!" Ouyang Hong was completely enraged. "Ouyang Hong, I advise you to be smart. If we insist on protecting Dean Fong, would you dare to go against the three of us? I'm afraid you don't even have the guts." Dean Lu said coldly. "Guts? Do you think I have the guts?" Ouyang Hong was so angry that he clenched his teeth. He waved his hand and ordered a few elders from Qiyang University to join the battle. Even if they had to fight to the death, they would definitely seek justice for Qin Hao. In an instant, the sound of air being torn apart abruptly resounded. The few outer court elders who came with Ouyang Hong flew out one after another. An intense orange light exploded from their bodies one after another. A bunch of ignorant fools who don't know what's good for them. Dean Lu couldn't help but mock them. He waved his hand as well. In the distance, the elders from Wild Dragon Academy flew over one after another. At the same time, including the elders from Star Moon Academy and Decimo Academy, a black mass of white-bearded old men stood in a row, glaring at Ouyang Hong and the others covetously. In terms of numbers, they were more than 3 times their number. In an instant, a strong smell of gunpowder swept through the air. A chaotic battle could break out at any moment. The situation was extremely grim. Cough cough. Everyone, stop. Qin Hao isn't dead yet, and he hasn't lost either. At this moment, Big Mouth Li coughed. It was especially loud at the critical moment when the battle was about to break out. It was also very untimely. Tens of thousands of people below the stage held their breaths, full of anticipation as they waited for the chaotic battle between the 4 academies. This was really disappointing. However, what did Big Mouth Lee just say? Qin Hao wasn't dead? And he hadn't lost? Everyone was immediately stunned. Qin Hao had taken such a heavy blow, and the Dean of Decimo Academy had the cultivation of a heavenly sage. How could that not kill him? Had he become a god? No one believed that Big Mouth Lee was joking. However, in the next second, they had no choice but to believe it, because someone saw a figure hanging in midair at the side of the huge Luo Shui stage. Qin Hao's right hand was gripping the edge of the stage tightly. His fingers were white as he gritted his teeth to prevent himself from falling. Then, he took a deep breath and slammed his right palm on the stage. Borrowing this force, Qin Hao's body soared into the sky and landed steadily. There wasn't a trace of blood on his body. He didn't look injured at all. It could even be said that Decimo Academy's palm didn't even touch a single hair on him. What the hell this? What's going on? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Looking at Qin Hao, who had returned to the stage, an old man over 50 years old couldn't help but exclaim. Unfortunately, no one could answer his question. That was because everyone present had no idea what was going on. Forget it, Dean Ouyang. Don't bother with a bunch of dogs. I'm fine. Qin Hao tidied up his clothes and said to the audience in a relaxed manner. In fact, when Dean Fang's palm was about to hit him, he had activated the golden bell protection of the Great Void Cauldron. With his current realm, which was comparable to an 8-star mortal sage, the golden bell protection he activated could easily block the attack of a 3-star profound sage. It just so happened that Dean Fang's palm was too hasty. His goal was only to force Qin Hao to dodge, so he didn't use too much strength. Instead, it was completely absorbed by the golden bell shield. Moreover, Qin Hao accurately avoided the back of his heart. The other party only hit his shoulder, giving the illusion that he was sent flying. Although he wasn't injured, his shoulder still hurt from the slap. Because of this, Qin Hao's most precious life-saving trump card was used up. There was no doubt that the following matches would be more difficult. This was what made Qin Hao feel particularly regretful. However, Qin Hao, will remember Dean Fang's palm today. I will definitely return it in the future. Chapter 419. What terrified him even more was that his heavenly saint ability did not manage to kill Qin Hao. Could it be that Qin Hao still had a trump card? Cold sweat trickled down his cheeks. This kid can't be allowed to live. Dean Fang growled in a low voice as a chill ran down his spine. Of course, he did not take Qin Hao's threat seriously. Did he want to avenge that slap? That was no different from seeking death. What a lowly bastard. Then, Qin Hao nodded gratefully at Ouyang Hong and the rest of the academy's higher-up. For his sake, he did not hesitate to fight 1 against 3 and openly challenge the 3 academies. He would remember this kindness. It's good that you're fine. Ouyang Hong heaved a long sigh of relief and waved his hand to dismiss the elders behind him. He then turned to look at Li Dazhui. Seniorly, are you going to sit by and do nothing? Someone maliciously broke the rules of the competition in front of you, haha. If this reaches the ears of the Dragon Abyss Emperor, of course I'll take care of it, and it's very simple, Li Dazhui said calmly, then suddenly waved his hand to the side. Smack! A transparent and illusory palm print slammed into Dean Fang's face, causing him to spin dozens of times in the air before landing heavily on the ground. Li Dazhui said coldly, since you're the outer court dean of the 4 academies and nurtured talents for Luo Shui, I'll spare your life, but if there's a next time, there won't be a next time, I swear, there won't be a next time. Dean Fang hurriedly bowed and begged for mercy. After that, he ran back to the spectator stand of Decimo Academy as if he was running for his life. He buried himself in the crowd and did not dare to show his face again. This time, he had really embarrassed himself. In front of tens of thousands of people, Many of the Empire's high-ranking officials were present, being slapped in public by Li Dazhui. As the Dean of Decimo Academy's outer court, he would probably be too ashamed to face anyone in the future. This was all Qin Hao's fault. Now, I solemnly announce that the winner of this competition is... After teaching Dean Fang a lesson, Li Dazhui was about to announce the results of the competition. Wait. Qin Hao interrupted him in time. Qin Hao, you, Li Dazhui frowned and looked puzzled. Senior Li, the battle between me and Wang Gui isn't over yet, Qin Hao said seriously. In an instant, these words caused an uproar in the crowd. The tortoise's neck had been cut open, and after spitting out so much blood, it had long died. Yet, Qin Hao said that the battle wasn't over yet? Could it be that he wanted to go over and whip the corpse? Wasn't this a little too hardcore? However, Qin Hao had already walked to Wang Gui's corpse with a gloomy expression. His voice sounded as if it came from the depths of hell. Wang Gui, am I right? This time, everyone was even more incredulous. Qin Hao was talking to a corpse. Had he gone mad from Dean Fang's slap? Qin Hao was too lazy to explain. He waited for a while, but there was still no response from Wang Gui. Wang Gui laid on the ground as if he was really dead, not moving an inch. Qin Hao then said sarcastically, "Since you like to pretend so much, I'll let you pretend forever." After he finished speaking, a fierce aura rose, and he raised the purple meteorite sword in his hand again. Qin Hao, I'm already in such a miserable state. Why do you have to kill me? Suddenly, Wang Gui's panicked voice rang out as if he had come back to life. He could no longer pretend. F***ck. The people on the 8 spectator stands stood up at the same time. Wang Gui was not dead. Moreover, he didn't know when his dislocated jaw had been fixed back. Hadn't his throat already been? At this moment, everyone was undoubtedly shocked to the core. Wang Gui was still alive even after that. It was a miracle. However, Qin Hao did not think much of it. As a Dendi, he knew all the Yuan cultivators with primordial spirits like the back of his hand. Wang Gui had the blood of the black tortoise, and his defense was undoubtedly his forte. Other than that, there was a special technique that others could not compare to. That was the grand tortoise breathing technique. The moment his throat was cut open, Wang Gui used the grand tortoise breathing technique and pretended to be dead. After spitting out a fountain of blood, he used his primordial energy to carefully suppress the injury. He thought that he was very secretive, but he did not expect that he could not escape Qin Hao's eyes. These were secondary. Qin Hao knew that the primordial spirit had a more powerful technique. Once one's cultivation reached the venerable level, even if his body was destroyed, his primordial spirit could wrap around his spiritual sense and escape. Then, he could choose a suitable host and reincarnate in another body. Of course, this method would cause his cultivation level to drop. Moreover, Wang Gui was still far from being mature. Qin Hao's meaning was very clear. Cut the weeds to remove the root. He could not leave any future troubles. I've already said that we will not rest until one of us is dead. If I lose, you will not let me live. So, go to hell. Without hesitation, Qin Hao's purple meteorite sword stabbed into Wang Gui's chest and crushed his heart. The powerful sword energy dispersed along with his primordial spirit. I, Wang Gui, am a peerless genius. I will definitely soar in the future and become an indomitable figure. However, I will be buried in the hands of a bumpkin. I refuse to accept this. Accompanied by Wang Gui's heart-wrenching wail, his life was over, and this time, Dean Fang could only watch his disciple die with tears in his eyes. He could not do anything to Qin Hao. Until now, the red slap on his face still hurt. You think you can support the heavens? Forgive me for being blunt, but your dignity has already fallen into Tian Buguang's pants. Qin Hao spat in disgust. You have already become Tian Buguang's lackey, And you still want to support the heavens? Don't you find it embarrassing? After killing Wang Gui, Qin Hao looked at Li Dazue and said, "Next round." Next round? Li Dazue was stunned and could not react. In fact, even the audience below the stage was still immersed in Wang Gui's wail and had not woken up. "Are you sure you want to continue?" Li Dazue said with a bitter face. Actually, he wanted to persuade Qin Hao to give up. After the consecutive battles, he had lost so much blood and even received a slap from Old Man Fong. Yet, he still wanted to continue? "Yes, next round. Hurry up, I still have things to do at home." Qin Hao waved his hand and drew a few sword flashes. His movements were very elegant. However, he was filled with melancholy. He really missed Daqin Prefecture and Fourth Uncle. He also did not know where that idiot Yuan Huai's family army had reached. Even after his death, he still wanted to harm others. Damn his ancestors! Even if the Yuan family's army did not reach Daqin Prefecture, Jiang country might not be able to hold on. What Qin Hao was most worried about was if Jiang Wang chose to surrender and join the Beiwu country's army. That would be terrible. Time was of the essence. Winning the championship could not be delayed. "Qin Hao, just give up." Sigh. Li Dazue shook his head. He could not bear to see him like this. This child was too stubborn. "Boss, you really should give up. Brother Qin Hao, you can't continue fighting. You will lose your life. Brother, just give up. I'm still here." Chapter 420. In response, Qin Hao smiled faintly. The determination in his eyes did not waver at all. Next round, Qin Hao versus Wang Haoren. Li Dazui tried to persuade him, but Qin Hao did not listen at all. He was destined to pay the price for his stubbornness. He announced that the competition would continue. However, the name Wang Haoren fell into his ears. It was so unfamiliar that Qin Hao did not react. "What are you looking at? Wang Haoren is the handsome me." A strange voice rang out. The red-clothed man came to Qin Hao's side with his hands behind his back. He had a dissatisfied expression. As an opponent, Qin Hao did not remember his name. "Wang Haoren?" Qin Hao asked faintly. He smiled and said, "Good name. Of course it's a good name. I named it myself. But your name also has the word Hao in it. Do you think you deserve to be called Hao?" The red-clothed man's eyes were filled with contempt. He felt that his name had the same word as Qin Hao's. It was a loss of class. "Cut the crap. Make your move." Qin Hao did not have the time to talk nonsense with him. He pointed his sword at his opponent. It was time to avenge Marulong, and he had promised the Sword Prince to kill this person. "I really admire your courage to be in a hurry to reincarnate. To be honest, your performance in killing Wang Gui surprised me." But, the red-robed man paused for a moment, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "But in my eyes, you're still trash. I can kill Wang Gui as well, and I don't even need to test him. I can destroy him with one move, and he will cease to exist." "Is that so?" Qin Hao smiled coldly. His tone was not small. "Wang Gui is dead now. When he was alive, why didn't you say that to his face?" "Then I will deal with you." The red-clothed man raised a finger. "I only need to use one move. After that move, Qin Hao will become history." In the face of such arrogant words, the people in the audience all looked at him with disdain. It was obvious that he was taking advantage of Qin Hao's poor condition and was deliberately trying to elevate himself. But at this time, a loud laughter sounded. Long Fun, who was in rags and covered with injuries, staggered to the bottom of the stage. He pointed at Qin Hao and shouted, "Yes, Qin Hao, you are about to die. You don't know how powerful Brother Haoren's means are. Brother Haoren, do you still remember our agreement? Let's win the championship together. We'll drink and chat merrily and laugh proudly at the heroes. Unfortunately, I don't have that chance anymore. Next, the championship belongs to none other than you." Moreover, I have decided that from today onwards, I, Long Fun, am willing to be your slave and serve you for the rest of my life, provided that help me tear Qin Hao to shreds. Speaking of this, Long Fun looked at Qin Hao with bloodshot eyes. If looks could kill, his eyes would have already poked thousands of holes in Qin Hao's body. He could have defeated Xiaogua by force, but because he inexplicably humiliated Qin Hao, it caused Xiaogua to go berserk. As a result, he failed at the last step. When he was only one step away from the champion's throne, it became an extravagant hope forever. Moreover, Long Fun lost his soul, his dantian was destroyed, and he became a cripple from then on. The enmity between him and Qin Hao was bigger than the sky. What, brother Howren? Who do you think you are to call me brother? Why don't you take a piss and look at your dog face? Now that you have lost your cultivation, you are like a stray dog. How dare you boast shamelessly to drink and chat merrily with me, and laugh proudly at the heroes? Are you worthy? The red-clothed man said with a face full of disgust. His eyes were even full of disgust. He even took the initiative to take a few steps away from Long Fun, keeping a distance, for fear of being contaminated by Long Fun's bad luck. At this moment, Long Fun didn't have the slightest qualification to call him brother. As for you wanting to be my servant, sorry, you are not even qualified to be a dog. If you know what's good for you, quickly scram. Don't be an eyesore. It's best if you commit suicide. Living is a waste of air. The red-clothed man continued and quickly waved his hand. Long Fun felt extremely humiliated. When he first met the red-clothed man, the other party was surrounded by a sect. It was he who provided refuge and saved the other party's life. He also shared the medicinal pills distributed by the Wild Dragon Academy with the red-clothed man. Especially a divine origin pill, which could raise the cultivation of a mortal saint by one realm. He was reluctant to use it himself, and gave it to the red-clothed man as a bargaining chip to win the championship. They agreed that if the two of them were to meet when they finally won the championship, the red-clothed man would take the initiative to admit defeat and give the championship to Long Fun. But now, he turned his back on him. Even when Long Fun humbly offered to be his servant, the red-clothed man didn't care about their old friendship and saving his life. Don't look at me with those naive eyes. It feels like you are scolding me. Since you once saved my life, here is 100 silver. Take it and scram. Go back to the countryside and farm. Ha ha ha. The red-clothed man laughed, took out a stack of silver notes and mercilessly threw it at Long Fun's face. The silver notes fluttered down and covered the ground. King Hao ran. Long Fun couldn't bear it any more and roared with clenched fist. What? Not satisfied? Then come and kill me. The red-clothed man's eyes suddenly trembled. Then, he threw a palm over. Bang! This palm ruthlessly hit Long Fun's chest and sent him flying to the ground, vomiting mouthfuls of blood. On the other hand, the Wild Dragon Academy, from the dean to the disciples, sat quietly. No one kindly stepped forward to help him up. Everyone's eyes were incomparably cold. The current Long Fun was indeed worse than a dog. Even Long Sanjin, who had the best relationship with Long Fun, had a disdainful look on his face. Ha ha ha! Long Fun also raised his head and laughed, a series of tears falling down. The human heart was too cruel. When you were proud, everyone would flatter you, climb your thigh, and crazily lick your boot. When you were frustrated, you were worse than a dog. Take it and go. Luoshui City is no longer a place for you to stay. Go and live an ordinary life. At this time, a figure came and helped the extremely down and out Long Fun up. Xiaogua's palm flashed, took out a small bag of mysterious crystals, and slapped it into the other's hand. Long Fun's body suddenly shook. His face twitched vigorously. His eyes were very complicated. Anger, hatred, murderous intent, and touched expressions changed continuously. Finally, he sighed and cupped his fist. Thank you, but I won't thank you for this. I wish you and Qin Hao good luck. After that, he took the mysterious crystals and chose to leave. Luoshui City was indeed not a place for him to stay. He had a lot of enemies in the past. If he didn't leave now, he was afraid that he would suffer. After taking a few steps, Long Fen turned his head back to look at the stage. When he saw the red-clothed man's proud expression, Long Fen shouted loudly, "I beg young Master Qin how to eliminate this man. The blood art he cultivates is to pluck the hearts of nearly 1,000 young girls and use them as a medicinal catalyst. His method is extremely cruel. If he is not eliminated, there will be endless troubles. Half a year ago, the granddaughter of the second elder of the Green Wind sect was actually killed by this person." After that, Long Fen didn't give anyone time to react. He quickened his pace and disappeared into the crowd. "Long Fen, I want you to die without a burial place." A roar exploded in the field. The red-clothed man was so angry that blue veins crawled on his face. Chapter 421. In order to cultivate his blood arts, he dug out the hearts of thousands of young girls and consumed them as supplements. Every girl was a virgin. Moreover, they weren't ordinary girls, but the female disciples of the various large sect with superb cultivation. The hearts of these virgins with extraordinary aptitude quickly increased his blood arts cultivation. After the red-clothed man refined them, he even spat out blood essence to nourish his extraordinary blood blade. In his words, the more beautiful a girl was, the more delicious her heart was. Not only could it strengthen his blood arts after consuming her heart, it could also have the effect of beautifying his skin. Unfortunately, his blood blade had already been shattered by Sword Prince. Following his identity being announced to the public, the entire Luoshui Plaza immediately went into an uproar. In many of the sects present, there were cases of female disciples mysteriously disappearing. Thinking about it, they must have suffered under the vicious hands of this heart-devouring crazy demon and had their hearts dug out after being ravaged. Almost at the same time, the sky was filled with furious figures like a tide, crazily surging towards the Luoshui Plaza. Among them, there was an old man who was over 50 years old, crying earth-shatteringly. He was the second elder of the Azure Wind sect. Although his granddaughter wasn't as outstanding as the top 10 contestants in the New Star competition, she was still a talented young girl at the age of 17. She was in her flowering age, but this red-clothed man, "Return my granddaughter's life." The second elder of the Azure Wind sect was enraged. His body flickered with saint-level energy. He was also the one who charged the most fiercely, as if he wouldn't stop until he tore the red-clothed man into pieces. Facing the crazily surging crowd, the red-clothed man's expression changed greatly. He was almost scared out of his wits and hurriedly shouted, "Seniorly, I am now a contestant in the New Star competition and am protected by the Empire's laws. Even if I die, at least I have to finish the competition, right?" Since it had come to this, he already had no illusions that he could survive. He couldn't possibly be forgiven. But before he died, he still wanted to go crazy and at least drag someone down with him. This Qin Hao wasn't bad, then, he would accompany him to hell. Being able to drag someone down with him before he died, his heart was filled with joy. Back down. Although he hated the red-clothed man, Big Mouthly had no choice but to stop him. After all, this was a competition held by the royal family. With a single palm strike, everyone was sent flying, rolling all over the ground. Taking a deep breath, Big Mouthly looked at the gazes filled with hatred and said, "I hope everyone can understand. I guarantee that after this battle, no matter who wins or loses, I will put this evil person to death by 1,000 cuts to vent everyone's anger. Damn it! Is there still justice in this world?" The people below the stage were also wailing. Their enemies were right in front of them, but they couldn't take revenge. They could only watch helplessly as the evil demons acted impudently. However, at this time, many people also turned their attention to Qin Hao on the stage. Young hero Qin Hao, please kill this demon. Show him your might and make him Luo Shui. Avenge my little granddaughter. From now on, you are the benefactor of my Green Wind faction. He is also the benefactor of the Tiger Wolf gang. It's the boss of my Iron Leg gang. I implore young hero Qin Hao to eliminate this demon. We are willing to establish an alliance with you. If young hero Qin Hao ever commands us to do so, all of us will obey your command. Plop, plop, plop. The sound of people kneeling on the ground continuously rang out. In an instant, Qin Hao was pushed to the teeth of the storm and became the focus of attention once again. They couldn't wait any longer. They couldn't wait to send Wang Haoren to hell to apologize to his loved ones. Qin Hao gets all the good things. If he wants to eliminate demons, I can do it too. Tian Buguang cursed angrily in the Starry Moon Academy's spectators' stand. Qin Hao's magnificent feat of stabbing his saber into the ground won him the favor of the Luo River Army and established a supreme prestige among the heroes. Now, there was another great opportunity to become a hero by slaying evil and defending justice in front of him. This made Tian Buguang extremely jealous. There were more than 1,000 sects and clans present at the scene, and they covered almost 80% of the forces in the Luo Shui Empire. Once Qin Hao killed the red-robed man, he would have won a huge favor. Wherever he went in the future, people would line the streets to welcome him. Although he was anxious, Tian Buguang didn't think that Qin Hao had the ability to do so. Therefore, the title of hero would be his sooner or later. In fact, Yi Shuihan and the others were sweating for Qin Hao at this moment. Everyone had heard of the Heart-Eater demon's evil ways. His methods of extracting hearts were extremely cruel, causing people's expressions to change. Now that the red-clothed man's identity was exposed, he would be driven to desperation and go crazy. It was even more dangerous. Qin Hao could continue the competition, but he couldn't fight with a mad dog, right? Brother Qin Hao, come down quickly. I won't take revenge for this, Sword Prince said, his eyes filled with anxiety. The red-clothed man's strength was already terrifying. Now that he was trapped in a cage, his counterattack was extremely fierce. It was better for Qin Hao to stay away from this unlucky situation. Big brother, come down quickly. As long as you come down, the red-clothed man is dead. There's no need to fight. Xiaogua was even more ruthless. He understood clearly. Big Mouth Li had just said that no matter who won or lost, he would immediately kill Wang Haoren. You little brat. The red-clothed man was so angry that his face was trembling. He pointed at Xiaogua and cursed in his heart. I just want to drag someone down with me before I die. Can't you let my evil plan succeed? Then he quickly looked at Qin Hao and said sarcastically, What? We're heroes who sacrificed ourselves, are you really afraid? You're really a coward, a coward. Also, let me tell you, you haven't experienced the feeling of digging out someone's heart. It's simply too satisfying. When those young girls were tied up by me, their expressions of fear and helplessness were filled with despair. Especially when I ripped out their hearts, that scream, ha ha. It was like heavenly music. It was so pleasant to hear. I like to do it with little girls, around 11 or 12 years old. For example, that little loli who called you Big Brother Qin Hao. The red-clothed man pointed at Nalan Li and licked his scarlet tongue. His eyes were intoxicated, revealing an expression of enjoyment. If I'm lucky enough to survive today, I'll choose her next. Also, the beauty standing beside her, is that her sister? She's really something. Scum! Pervert! Below the stage, Nalan Li and Naransu angrily shouted. The red-clothed man was simply insane. Qin Hao, are you going to fight or not? Why don't you just admit defeat? If you can't do it, I, Tian Buguang, will be happy to get rid of Wang Haoren for my colleagues. Tianbuguang's cold laughter came from afar. He even cupped his fists and kept showing off to the crowd. It seemed that if he casually attacked, the red-clothed man would fall into a pool of blood. For him, killing the heart-eating demon was just a piece of cake. As for Qin Hao, that was something that would never happen. Ai. Wan Qin really misjudged. After a series of sarcastic remarks, Tianbuguang shook his head insincerely. On the surface, he felt that it was not worth it for Chen Wanqin, but on the inside, he was overjoyed. Qin Hao didn't say anything, but what answered him was a soaring sword light rising from the stage. It was like a white light piercing through the sky, dispersing the high clouds. Chapter 422. Qin Hao admitted that he was not a saint who could save all living beings. However, the red-clothed man's evil deeds were simply infuriating to both man and God. Even the heavens could not tolerate it, especially when he threatened Naransu and Nalanli in front of him. This seriously violated Qin Hao's bottom line. This person could not be allowed to live. He used all his strength as soon as he attacked. The vitality of a 5-star mortal saint continuously gathered on the sword and merged with Qin Hao's sword will. The sword light dispersed the clouds, revealing the clear sky. Its mighty power shrouded the heavens and the earth. At the same time, Qin Hao's body shot forward like a parallel drill. He spun quickly and charged straight at the red-clothed man. His aura was extremely cold. The red-clothed man was extremely vigilant. Qin Hao had even shattered Wang Gui's soul. This sword was no small matter. Naturally, he did not dare to be careless. As he waved his hands, an abundant amount of blood qi rolled out. It was like the ink of an octopus, firmly concealing him within. When Qin Hao raised his sword and rushed over, the blood qi that filled the sky immediately engulfed him. As soon as he came into contact with the blood qi, Qin Hao's forward speed was immediately hindered. He felt as if he had fallen into a deep quagmire, unable to move an inch. The purple meteorite sword was almost stopped in front of the red-clothed man's nose, but it could not pierce any further. Oh no! He cursed inwardly. At this moment, Qin Hao could clearly feel that the red-clothed man's vitality was far thicker than he had imagined. Judging from this situation, the red-clothed man's 5-star mortal saint level was just a facade. In reality, he was comparable to a 6-star mortal saint. In addition, his blood art was very strange. For a moment, he blocked Qin Hao's attack. If his attack failed, he immediately retreated. Qin Hao could not afford to waste any of his energy. However, the red-clothed man did not give him the chance. His palm, which contained blood qi, heavily struck Qin Hao's left shoulder. Crack! There was a crisp sound. In their first exchange, Qin Hao had already suffered a setback. Although his bones were fine, his shoulder was dislocated. However, using this force, he successfully broke free from the shackles of blood and qi and staggered back to the ground. Ha ha! You Qin Hao are just SOSO! The red-clothed man laughed loudly. As he spoke, the blood qi he emitted became even thicker. It was as if a great fog had suddenly descended from the sky and filled the arena. However, the fog was red. Through the exchange of blows, he now had full confidence that he could drag Qin Hao into the King of Hell's palace. If it wasn't for the fact that I've lost so much blood, I would have been able to kill this person with one strike. Qin Hao tightened his grip on his sword, and a look of pity flashed across his face. The man in red had tested him, and he had also tested him. However, Qin Hao had overestimated the strength of his body. With his strength that was comparable to an 8-star mortal saint, he could easily break through the red-robed man's defenses and kill him. He could only blame himself for not being able to use his full strength now. The blood qi in his body was lacking, and when they exchanged blows, he was also affected by his opponent's blood art. At that moment, Qin Hao clearly felt that the little blood qi in his body was forcefully extracted by the red fog that wrapped around him. This caused his mind to be dazed, and he was hit by his opponent's palm. If he was in his peak condition, Qin Hao would not be afraid at all. As Denda's rebirth, he had also studied blood arts in his previous life. Although he despised this method and had never cultivated it, he knew its weakness. In fact, this was also the reason why Qin Hao had promised Sword Prince to avenge him. However, now he was powerless. He no longer had enough strength to face the red-clothed man head-on. Perhaps, I still have a chance. The battle intent on his face did not fade because of this. On the contrary, the battle intent in Qin Hao's eyes burned brighter. At the same time, he punched his chest. His face, which was already pale to begin with, showed signs of pain as the punch landed. What's going on? Qin Hao hit himself? Has he gone mad? The spectators below the stage were puzzled. They were looking forward to Qin Hao eliminating the evil heart-eating demon. If he could not succeed, he could admit defeat and not waste his life. Now, he had started to torture himself. He must have felt embarrassed. He must be under too much psychological pressure and doesn't have the face to face us. The evil heart-eating demon is indeed powerful. Accompanied by a wave of sighs, no one was optimistic about this battle anymore. Qin Hao would definitely lose, and his life would be in danger. Ha ha ha. This is the result of overestimating himself. Tian Buguang was overjoyed, and his body was trembling with excitement. If Qin Hao could not defeat the red-clothed man, he would definitely beg Big Mouth Li to snatch this opportunity to become famous. At that time, the championship would be his, and the fame would be his. It could be said that he had become famous in one battle. From then on, his status in the Luoshui Empire would be unlimited, and he would become a young hero. He only hoped that the red-clothed man would be ruthless, and it would be best if he could kill Qin Hao immediately. In fact, the red-clothed man had already decisively made another move. Time was limited, and he could not give Qin Hao a chance to admit defeat. He rushed forward. Before he arrived, his blood aura had already filled Qin Hao's body, firmly trapping him. Then, his palms swept out like the wind, and he struck again and again, not giving Qin Hao any chance to breathe. Facing the fierce attacks, Qin Hao dodged while constantly hammering his chest with his fists. In the eyes of the outside world, this action was simply stupid. But no one saw that with every strike, the smile on Qin Hao's face deepened. Of course, the pain he had to endure was also increasing exponentially. What he wanted to do was very simple. He wanted to activate the drop of demon god blood essence in his heart. Just like when the muscular old man wanted to crush Qin Hao to death with a single palm, he constantly bombarded the blood essence with external power, letting the blood essence feel the threat its master was facing. Once the power of the blood essence was awakened, Qin Hao could foresee that the blood he had lost would be instantly replenished. At that time, his combat strength would be abundant, and he would be able to win in one fell swoop. After all, this was a drop of demon god blood. It contained monstrous power that mortals could not imagine. He seemed to feel an inexplicable danger from Qin Hao's strange actions. Even the red-clothed man himself could not tell, but he definitely did not think that Qin Hao was a brainless person. His attacks became even more ruthless, and his blood aura completely enveloped the nearly 100 meters of the Luoshui platform. This time, Qin Hao had nowhere to run. Your time of death has come. I'm going to dig out your heart. Die with me. Amidst his shrill cries, the red-clothed man spread his arms. The blood aura of the entire Luoshui platform was like a giant red net that covered the sky. It firmly fell and bound Qin Hao, who was dodging tighter and tighter. Instantly, Qin Hao, who was already weak to begin with, became even weaker. It was even visible to the naked eye that wisps of pure blood aura were forcibly extracted from his body, turning into red lines that were absorbed by the blood net that enveloped Qin Hao. Chapter 423. Just a little bit more, I can't give up, persevere. Clenching his teeth, Qin Hao reminded himself. He faintly felt the blood essence in his heart stir, and used his willpower to defend his mind. But his body didn't listen to him at all. His vision became more and more blurry, and his head was dizzy. Shaking his head was useless. Gradually, his consciousness seemed to be frozen, and he lost consciousness. Woo-woo! Let go. I won't marry. In a daze, there was a voice calling out to him. It was very helpless, but very familiar. This voice was imprinted in the depths of his heart. Where am I? Have I been reborn? As if time had turned back, when he opened his eyes again, Qin Hao found himself lying on a sickbed, his body incomparably weak. Almost subconsciously, Qin Hao jumped up, lifted the blanket and ran outside. That voice just now was Xiaohan. After running out of the room, what entered his eyes was the scene of Song Zhong coming to snatch him away. Lu Yu was lying on the ground, being beaten up by a few people. Xiaohan was crying as Song Zhong grabbed her by the arm and dragged her out of the door. Stop! Qin Hao roared and was about to save her. Swish! In the next second, all the figures in front of him disappeared. The scene changed, and he appeared in Fengli Temple again. The scenery was still so familiar. However, there was a floating hall in the distance that collapsed and fell in front of Qin Hao's eyes. That was the symbol of Fengli Temple, the Phoenix Glass Hall. Ha ha ha! Arrogant laughter sounded, especially ear-piercing. Qin Hao turned his head and saw Duan Ziju slowly retracting his hand, looking at him with contempt. That smile seemed to be mocking Qin Hao's incompetence. Creak! Qin Hao clenched his fists tightly. This was the scene of Gongsun Changxing forcibly taking away Xiaohan. He would never forget it in this life. Disciple, eat it, win the martial arts competition, and defeat Wang Gui. In this life, I will only accept you as my disciple. You are my pride. A withered hand stretched out in front of him, holding a jade pill. It was a 6-revolving origin spirit pill. Qin Hao quickly looked up and saw Dan Xian's amiable face. Before he had time to rejoice, Dan Xian's face was gradually covered in a layer of ice. Finally, it was completely frozen, cruelly separating the two of them. No, Qin Hao raised his head and roared. The events of the past were vivid in his mind. In order for him to spread his wings and soar into the ranks of the Luoshui Empire, Xiaohan was forced to leave. To this day, Pill Profound was still frozen in his coffin. How could he fall at this time? I promised Xiaohan that I would go to Daliao in Beijiang to propose marriage to Emperor Xiao within 4 years. I promised Uncle Chun and Senior Drunkard that I would break through to the king stage, save Master, and undo their one-life coexistence spell. How can I lose to the red-clothed man? Who does he think he is? I am Dendi reborn. I have yet to take my revenge. How can I let Zhan Wu and Han Lingxian see me as a joke and lose to a little ant? Raging anger erupted from the bottom of his heart like a surging river, violently rushing along Qin Hao's 8 extraordinary meridians. In the end, tens of thousands of rivers gathered in his dantian, forming an endless ocean. In his anger, the ocean overflowed. The monstrous waves seemed to be able to sweep away the sun and moon and swallow the sky. At the last moment, the power of the essence blood finally awakened, and in an instant it filled Qin Hao's tired body. Even the huge amount of blood and qi made him feel like a person who had been hungry for half a month and ate 10 tables of dishes in one meal. Qin Hao had an uncontrollable impulse. This abundant blood and qi was too shocking, completely beyond Qin Hao's tolerance. In the outside world, seeing that he had firmly trapped Qin Hao and that he had no strength to struggle, the red-clothed man laughed wildly without restraint. I didn't expect that I would be able to drag someone down with me before I die. You, Qin Hao, are really unlucky. You didn't win the championship, but you're going to hell with me, ha ha ha. Accompanied by laughter, he stretched out his hand with a ferocious expression. His 10 fingers and sharp claws were getting closer and closer to Qin Hao's chest, as if he was going to tear open Qin Hao's clothes in public and dissect him. Many girls in the audience hurriedly covered their eyes. They couldn't bear to see this bloody scene. Stop! How dare you? I'll kill you! In the blink of an eye, several figures shot up and charged into the ring. Seeing that Qin Hao was in danger, Ouyang Hong, Xiaogua, and the veiled woman hiding in the crowd almost attacked at the same time. On the Star Moon spectator platform, Tianbuguang was laughing like crazy. Once Qin Hao died, no one would be his match. He would definitely be the champion. Moreover, he would be able to eliminate the scourge of the heart-eating demon and win the respect of the various forces. He would gain both fame and fortune. Therefore, Tianbuguang's face was like a big chrysanthemum blooming in the sun, smiling brilliantly. But at this moment, whoosh! Qin Hao, whose consciousness was in a blur, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 sharp rays of light emitted from his pupils, and he didn't feel tired at all. At the same time, a dragon roar that soared into the sky resounded loudly from within his body. Boundless blood qi, which had never been seen before, crazily erupted from the pores all over his body. In an instant, it filled the entire area and also enveloped the red-clothed man opposite him. The red-clothed man was shocked. Qin Hao had come back to life? What made him even more terrified was that Qin Hao had lost a lot of blood, and in the fight just now, almost all of his qi of blood and qi had been sucked dry. He actually spat out so much qi of blood right in front of him. His ancestor, how much qi of blood did Qin Hao have? Next, the red-clothed man wasn't just scared. He was in despair. He realized that the qi of blood that Qin Hao had spat out was like a swarm of locusts, crazily squeezing into his body through the blood net. All the meridians and organs in his body were filled with qi of blood and qi of blood and qi of blood and qi of blood. They were about to burst, but the endless flow of qi of blood didn't stop. Suddenly, a strange scene happened in front of everyone. The red-clothed man on the stage was like an inflated balloon. With heart-wrenching screams, his body kept expanding. His waist was thicker than a water tank, and his legs were stronger than the transformed Xiaogua. What the hell is going on? Who can tell me what the hell is going on? Below the stage, countless old men rubbed their eyes crazily. Their eyelids were already rotten. They couldn't believe it. I don't accept this. I don't. Boom. There was a huge explosion. Accompanied by countless pieces of clothes falling from the sky, the red-clothed man's screams stopped abruptly. He had also completely disappeared from the arena. Only Qin Hao was left on the stage. He was alone with a blank look on his face. F***ck. I haven't even made a move, and the red-clothed man has already defecated? Accident. This was definitely an accident. Originally, he thought that after the awakening of his blood essence, he could replenish the blood he had lost. Then, Qin Hao would be in his best condition to defeat his opponent. He didn't think that this power would be so strong that it would cause the red-clothed man to explode. Speaking of which, it was really sad. The red-clothed man who had always liked to suck the blood of his opponents died in such a sullen manner. However, he still had to thank him. It was because he liked to suck blood that he was able to balance the overflowing qi of blood in Qin Hao's body and not cause him to explode. Wang Haoren's death actually helped Qin Hao. Moreover, before his death, he gave Qin Hao a good reputation for slaying demons. Both of their names have the word Hao in them. We are indeed fated. Qin Hao reacted. He smiled faintly and turned his head to look below the stage. Chapter 424. Everything was fine just now. Qin Hao fell into the blood web and had no strength to struggle at all. He was about to die. All of a sudden, he became vigorous and lively. Instead, the red-clothed man exploded into a cloud of blood. This scene was incomprehensible. It was very strange. The tens of thousands of eyes below the stage stared straight. The situation had changed inconceivably. What exactly is going on? Sword Young Master's tone was somewhat trembling. It was very ridiculous. Even if Qin Hao could win, it should not be the scene before him. He was even prepared for Qin Hao to lose. In the end, the gap was too big. Could it be? Qin Hao still has a trump card? Dean Shifeng shrank into the crowd and looked at the stage. His face became incomparably distorted. Qin Hao received his palm and was unharmed. It was obviously abnormal. The battle with the red-clothed man was even stranger. Seeing this, he felt goosebumps. Qin Hao's methods were endless and unfathomable. A question popped up in everyone's mind. What kind of treasure did Qin Hao rely on to make his opponent explode? But this question was destined to never be answered. It would become an unworldly secret. Thank you, young Master Qin Hao, for getting rid of this demon for us. It's satisfying to see him explode all over the place. We are unable to repay young Master's kindness. Accept old man's kneel. Young Master Qin Hao is a talent with such outstanding strength. Forgive me for being blunt. I have a daughter who is similar to young Master's age. She hasn't fallen in love with anyone yet. If young Master has time, you must come to our Iron Leg gang after the competition. I have a female disciple. Let me tell you about that female disciple. Old man has collected treasures all his life. My treasures are, you must come to our Azure Wind sect. Our Azure Wind sect's treasure vault has long been open to young Master. After a long time, everyone recovered from the shock. They were all beaming with joy and kept praising Qin Hao. They all invited Qin Hao to their sect as a guest. There were also many sects that regarded Qin Hao as an honorary elder and vice sect leader. In short, all kinds of exaggerated titles were attached to Qin Hao, making him overwhelmed. The Divine Leg Elder of the Iron Leg Gang, the Honorary Sword God of the Green Wind Sect, the Lion King of the Tiger Wolf Gang, etc. His purpose was very simple. Firstly, he wanted to repay his debt of gratitude. Secondly, he wanted to win over Qin Hao, a talent. Damn it! Tian Buguang was so angry that he slammed his fist on the table beside him, shattering the cup and sending the wooden planks flying. He really didn't feel good about it. His dream of becoming a hero was ruined. There was no doubt that from today onwards, Qin Hao's name would spread throughout the Luoshui Empire and be praised by all the major sects. Everyone who saw him would love him and flowers would bloom. Haha, congratulations, Qin Hao. Big Mouth Li went up the stage with a smile to express his congratulations. It was purely an accident. In fact, I was careless and killed Wang Haoran. This junior is ashamed. Qin Hao answered honestly and modestly. But it was indeed the truth from the bottom of his heart. However, when this truth fell into the ears of the other young martial artists, why did it sound so harsh to their ears? A moment of carelessness and he had killed someone. You were really powerful when you were careless. Why didn't we have such good luck during the competition? On the contrary, we were careless and lost because of his ancestors. Everyone felt a burst of jealousy in their hearts. After Big Mouth Li finished his congratulations, he looked in the direction of Tian Buguang. His meaning was obvious. Qin Hao didn't have a chance to rest. The next match was about to begin. This match was also the last match of the first round of the championship competition. It would be even more difficult. Qin Hao also knew very well that he didn't have a chance to rest. However, in his current state, he didn't need to rest at all. The power of the essence blood in his body was still vibrating. Every time it beat, it transmitted a strong force. Qin Hao was very energetic. To put it bluntly, It would be a piece of cake for him to fight 100-foot scratching fierce men alone. We admit defeat for the next match. The competition ends here. However, at this moment, before Qin Hao could nod in agreement, an anxious voice shouted. The person who spoke was Ouyang Hong, the dean of the Qiyang Academy. Ouyang Hong's initial expectation was that Qin Hao would be able to enter the top 10. However, he didn't expect that he would rush all the way to the first and second place match, far exceeding his goal. Just now, the battle between Qin Hao and the red-clothed man had made him nervous. He was afraid that something would happen to Qin Hao. Now, even if Qin Hao forfeited, he would still be second place. This ranking was enough to make Qi Yangbin proud. In Ouyang Hong's opinion, there was no need to fight for first place. The next opponent was Tian Buguang, the number 1 genius of the Star Moon Academy, the grandson of the number 3 expert of the Luo Shui Empire, Tian Shulin. It was better not to fight Qin Hao. While they were talking, Ouyang Hong had already walked down the stage. He waved at Qin Hao, indicating for him to come down. Qin Hao frowned slightly. I'm only 1 step away from the championship. You want me to give up now? Are you kidding? After winning the championship, he would be rewarded with 300,000 mysterious crystals. He could drive the flying celestial device and quickly return to Daqin Prefecture to save people. The heavenly spirit pearl alone was of great significance to Qin Hao. Whether it was to improve his strength to awaken Dan Xian or to go to Daliao in the northern frontier to find Xiaohan, Qin Hao was determined to win. Qin Hao, you cowardly rat! Are you going to admit defeat in front of me? I haven't made a move yet, and you're already running away with your tail between your legs? On the other side, before Qin Hao could speak, Tian Buguang had already jumped down from the Star Moon viewing platform and rushed over. As soon as he got on the stage, he pointed at Qin Hao's nose and sneered coldly. He had just woken up from the scene of the red-clothed man exploding into a bloody mist and immediately regained his confidence. Who was he? He was the grandson of Tian Shulin, known as the best genius of fire attack in 1,000 years, and had the natal soul fire. Even if Qin Hao recovered to his best state, he was just an ordinary 5-star mortal saint. In terms of realm, Tian Buguang was not afraid at all, let alone the natal soul. Qin Hao did not have the natal soul at all. Who told you that I was going to admit defeat? Qin Hao took 2 steps forward and stood face to face with Tian Buguang. He turned his head and gave Ouyang Hong a "don't worry" look. Ha ha! Very good. As Qin Hao walked over, Tian Buguang laughed unscrupulously. In the laughter, killing intent was overflowing. At this time, Qin Hao was too lazy to argue with him. People would always do something crazy before they died. Subconsciously, Qin Hao looked down the stage. Because in the bustling crowd, a woman's voice had broken into his consciousness. Qin Hao remembered this very clearly. At a glance, he saw a woman in white with a veil over her face. This woman gave him a very familiar feeling. Just as Qin Hao's gaze landed on her, the woman in white subconsciously dodged into the crowd. Just now, when Qin Hao was in trouble, she could not help but want to help him. Now that Qin Hao was safe, it wasn't appropriate for her to show herself, especially in front of Tian Buguang. She couldn't reveal herself to Qin Hao. Qin Hao, why do you keep looking down? Are you that afraid to face me? Afraid of me? Tian Buguang raised his nose and said narcissistically. Chapter 425. You are simply courting death. This time, even the gods and Buddhas can't save you. Tian Buguang clenched his fist hard and looked at Qin Hao as if he was looking at a dead man. To be honest, I'm very curious. You want me to die, is it just because of Wan Qin? Qin Hao arrived with his hands clasped behind his back and spoke frankly. Isn't that enough? Wan Qin is as beautiful as a fairy and has the ice spirit body that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. She and I are a match made in heaven." Tianbuguang was angry when he mentioned this. He pointed at Qin Hao's face and said, "But what about you? You are sandwiched between the two of us, deliberately being an eyesore. You are not even a fart in front of me, yet you want to get my Wan Qin. I can't vent my anger even if I kill you 10,000 times." Qin Hao showed an expression of sudden realization. Sure enough, he was angry because of a beauty. But this was just Tianbuguang's wishful thinking. In fact, Qin Hao did not have any improper thoughts about Chen Wanqin. The relationship between the two was very subtle, with a bit of mutual appreciation and admiration. But when it came to lovers, Qin Hao was far from having such thoughts. In this life, Xiao Han was enough to fill his whole heart. Wow, the ice spirit body that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. Yes, she is known as the ice goddess of the star-moon outer courtyard and has the ice spirit source spirit. It is indeed compatible with Tianbuguang's fire source spirit. Although ice and fire are two extremes, there is nothing absolute in the world. The two can also complement each other. If they become lovers, it is hard to imagine how much Tianbuguang's cultivation will soar with the help of the ice spirit body girl's ice power. Speaking of which, Tianbuguang's cultivation is scary enough. At the age of 20, he has reached the peak of the 5-star mortal saint and has the fire source spirit. In the future, he will be a hero. With the constant discussion below, Tianbuguang on the stage was naturally full of pride. Among the younger generation, he was fully worthy of the title of the number one person. If he could really marry Chen Wanqin, with the ice spirit in her body as the nourishment for his fire source spirit, his cultivation speed would double. Unfortunately, Wanqin doesn't like you, and you really don't deserve it. Qin Hao's cold voice interrupted Tianbuguang, who was immersed in his sweet dream. He was only 20 years old, and he was already a peak 5-star mortal saint? In front of Qin Hao, he was really not qualified. This was because Qin Hao was only 17 years old, and he was also a peak 5-star mortal saint. How presumptuous! Is Wanqin's name something a piece of trash without a source spirit like you can say? Tianbuguang said furiously. Qin Hao had repeatedly challenged his limits and called out such an intimate name in front of him. He simply didn't take Tianbuguang seriously. Wanqin and I are in love with each other, and after a year, when she has mastered her ice cultivation, she promised me that she would marry me. That night, she confessed to me in the forest. She swore that she would only love me, her eldest senior brother, and that I was her only true love. But what about you? Tianbuguang pointed at Qin Hao and said angrily, "You toad, but you pester Wanqin like a teddy bear in heat and won't let go. I have long heard that when you were in Jiang country, you flirted with her. You are simply shameless to the extreme. So, I have to stand up and expose your dog face." Chi ha! Hearing the other party's long speech, Qin Hao was really amused and burst into laughter. Should I pester Wanqin? And like a teddy bear in heat, I pester her and won't let go? Tianbuguang was really an expert at distorting the truth. I have seen thick-skinned people, but I have never seen someone like you who can lie without blushing. In fact, the person pestering Wanqin is not me, but you, Tianbuguang, right? Bullshit. In the face of Qin Hao's words, Tianbuguang flew into a rage and shouted, "Qin Hao, don't deceive yourself anymore and don't mislead others. Everyone knows that I have a source spirit physique, and my future is limitless. What's more, who am I? I am the grandson of Tian Shulin, the successor of the Star Moon Academy's president. As long as I smile, what kind of woman won't throw herself at me? But I don't care at all, I only have Wanqin in my heart. Is it fun to slander me and ruin my character like this? Oh, I understand, you are clearly jealous of me, jealous that Wanqin fell in love with me." Tianbuguang's words immediately made many people below nod their heads. What he said was right, in terms of background, in terms of status, in terms of potential. Qin Hao could not compare with Tianbuguang at all. Of course, Qin Hao was also not bad, but Tianbuguang was too outstanding. When the two were compared, Qin Hao's brilliance was immediately overshadowed. Indeed, if I were that Wan Qin, I would also choose young Master Tian without hesitation. The public opinion below was almost one-sided. This made Tianbuguang very proud, and then he couldn't help but mock Qin Hao again. To tell you the truth, just yesterday Wan Qin was admiring the moon with me and expressed her love for me. She said that her biggest wish in life was to marry me. But what about you? You have no sense of shame, repeatedly pestering and destroying our relationship, so today, I will punish you on behalf of the heavens. Are you convinced? In the face of Tianbuguang's righteous words, in an instant, many people looked at Qin Hao with a different color in their eyes. Just now, everyone thought that Qin Hao was a hero, but they didn't expect that he was a thief who seduced other people's wives behind their backs. It was true that one could know a person's face but not his heart. Compared with young Master Tian, who was an open and above-board man, he was far worse. In this regard, Qin Hao did not explain. In fact, it didn't make sense now. Tianbuguang's mouth was full of shit, almost making a dead person come back to life. So next, let the fist do the talking. There was no problem that couldn't be solved with one punch. If one punch didn't work, then two punches. However, Qin Hao was not willing to explain, but it did not mean that no one would defend him. Almost as soon as Tianbuguang's voice fell, a female voice mixed with anger suddenly sounded from below the stage. Tianbuguang, stop talking nonsense and tarnishing Qin Hao's character. This shout was very loud, and it was full of vitality. It spread out in waves. Everyone was shocked. Who dared to go against Tianbuguang? She was simply courting death. Then, following the voice, everyone found a woman in white in the crowd. She was the one who shouted, and she seemed to be very emotional. This woman was tall, and her black hair reached her waist. Her beautiful eyes were like stars, and her eyebrows were like thin willows. Although her face was covered with a veil and her face couldn't be seen clearly, judging from the aura she exuded, she was definitely a peerless beauty. No wonder. I was wondering why she was so familiar. On the stage, Qin Hao's heart finally fell to the ground. He had already guessed who it was. With such a tall figure, who else could it be but Chen Wanqin who disappeared? Previously, he thought that she was kidnapped, and he was worried about her. This shout also made Qin Hao recognize the other party's voice. However, why did Chen Wanqin disappear for no reason before the start of the competition, and choose to stand up at this time? This was what Qin Hao couldn't figure out. Chapter 426. At this moment, Chen Wanqin walked towards the Luo Shui stage. As she walked, she took off the white veil on her face. A peerlessly beautiful face was revealed before everyone's eyes, causing countless exclamations of shock and amazement. What a beautiful girl! She's so beautiful that she can overturn the moon and put the flowers to shame. What a cliché! It's an insult to describe her. How is this a woman's face? It's clearly a fairy from the ninth heaven. Facing the praises, Chen Wanqin ignored them. Her eyes were locked on Qin Hao as she walked down the stage. Sister Wanqin, it's great to see that you're fine. Xiaogua walked over and said happily. He was also very worried about Chen Wanqin's safety. Chen Wanqin smiled and nodded. She patted Xiaogua's head as if to say, "Well done." Then her gaze fell on the stage again. The moment she saw Tianbuguang, anger surged. "Wanqin, why did you suddenly appear? To be honest, I was very worried when you disappeared from the school team without saying a word." Tianbuguang walked to the edge of the Luo Shui stage and said awkwardly. His whole body was unnatural. As Qin Hao had said, he had been pestering Chen Wanqin. However, she did not appreciate it at all. Even if he was the grandson of the Star Moon School's principal, Chen Wanqin had never looked at him favorably. Everyone in the Luo Shui stage suddenly realized that this white-clothed fairy was the #1 goddess of the Star Moon Outer School. Chen Wanqin. Why I disappeared and why I suddenly appeared is not important. The important thing is that I want to announce to everyone that Qin Hao has never pestered me, and it's impossible for him to be as filthy as a teddy bear in heat. In fact, I'm Qin Hao's admirer, but he already has a girl in his heart. I already have a girl I like. That girl is 10,000 times better than me, and 10,000 times more outstanding. Chen Wanqin's voice was as clear as water. His voice wasn't loud, but it slid through everyone's hearts. As if it had some sort of magical power, everyone's jaws dropped at the same time, revealing an expression of disbelief. Heavens! What did Miss Wanqin say? In fact, she was Qin Hao's admirer? However, it seems that Qin Hao already has someone he likes. Did I hear wrongly? I must be hallucinating. Hallucinate your father's egg. We all heard it. Could it be that everyone is hallucinating? According to this, Tian Buguang's claim that he and Miss Wanqin are in love is completely true. What a load of nonsense. It's obviously nonsense. Not only is it nonsense, but it's also biting back at young Master Qin Hao and slandering his character. Come, I was really blind. I almost believed his nonsense. Just now I despised Qin Hao. In fact, the person who should be despised is Tian Buguang. He failed to live up to the cultivation of his grandfather, Tian Shulin. Shameless. At this moment, the heated discussion lasted for a long time. Thousands of people did not forget to point at Tian Buguang, their faces full of contempt. Tian Buguang's face immediately turned red, as if he had been slapped in the face. He tried his best to suppress the anger in his heart and strongly restrained his trembling body. He pretended to be gentle and said, "Wanqin, what are you talking about? I don't understand at all. Did you catch a cold again? Come on, take a pill." While speaking, Tian Buguang quickly found a way out for himself. He took out a pill from his arms, bent over, and handed it to Chen Wanqin. There was a cold threat in his eyes. Slap! Unexpectedly, Chen Wanqin waved her hand and opened the pill. The pill immediately flew out and rolled to the ground. It accidentally rolled under the feet of a spectator. That person panicked and stomped it into powder. Chen Wanqin was angry. Tian Buguang, you can slander and spread rumors about me, but you can't slander Qin Hao. Moreover, I won't marry you. You don't deserve it. Squeak! Tian Buguang reached out his hand and firmly grasped it. He couldn't bear it anymore and said in a low voice, "Wanqin, I, Tian Buguang, am handsome and have a strong background. Which part of me can't compare to that trash Qin Hao? What does your handsome appearance have to do with me? So what if you have a strong background? In my eyes it's worthless. Not to mention compared to Qin Hao. Your character is incomparable. Even if you become the #1 person in the Western Liangland in the future, you won't be able to compare to Qin Hao's caring gaze." Boom! After hearing this, Tian Buguang's tolerance was pushed to the limit. He stomped his foot on the stage. The powerful force of his foot caused the edge of the stage to cave in. Everyone was shocked by this scene. This strength was really. Chen Wanqin, don't be so shameless. I'll give you one last chance. In front of everyone, agree to marry me. Don't forget, you're now a disciple of Star Moon Academy. Moreover, you don't want anything to happen to your master, right? She worked hard for decades to become the vice principal of the outer court. You really can't let her go. Threat. Hong Guogua's threat. At this moment, Tian Buguang's eyes were red. He had really made a fool of himself today. If he couldn't regain his dignity, he wouldn't be able to stand tall in the future. He would become the biggest joke in the eyes of the playboy in the imperial city. Chen Wanqin, watch your attitude. At this moment, an aged voice sounded. On the Star Moon viewing platform, Principal Lee of Star Moon Academy stood up with a gloomy face. His expression seemed to say, "If you agree to young Master Tian, I'll pretend that nothing happened. If you don't, I'll immediately expel you from the academy. Moreover, I'll cripple your master. For a Qin Hao, it wasn't worth it." I've long heard that Star Moon Academy is recognized as the #1 academy in the Luoshui Empire. Not only do they have a strong teaching staff, but every teacher is a highly respected senior. Today, it seems like I'm disappointed. Qin Hao's voice sounded faintly, filled with disdain. Tian Buguang was already a terrible person. The principal of Star Moon Academy was jackals of the same lair as him. As a dignified senior, he shamelessly threatened Chen Wanqin, a little girl. After he finished speaking, he continued, "Wanqin, if you don't feel comfortable staying in Star Moon Academy, you might as well come to the Scarlet Sun Martial Institution. I believe that Headmaster Ouyang will definitely be happy to accept you. Oh, and your master as well. Isn't that right, Principal?" Qin Hao smiled and looked at Ouyang Hong. "Ha, that's right, that's right. Wanqin, come with your master. Xiao Gua is also here. You came from Jiang country with Qin Hao, so you can take care of each other. The doors of Qiyang Academy will always be open to you." Ouyang Hong patted his chest and promised. He was secretly delighted. Chen Wanqin also had a Yuan spirit. She was a rare talent. More importantly, her master was no ordinary person. She had the strength of a heavenly saint. If she joined the Qiyang Academy, she would undoubtedly be a powerful force. Ouyang Hong, I'll *CK your ancestor. Principal Lee was unhappy on the spot and cursed. He was so angry that his face and neck turned red. Ouyang Hong, this old bastard, had just poached Xiaogua from Wild Dragon Academy. Now, he was trying to poach his disciple. Chapter 427. He really could not deal with the situation before him. But there was one thing that could not be changed. Without his grandfather's permission, Chen Wanqin could forget about leaving Starry Moon Academy. Even if she ran to the ends of the earth, he would still catch her. At this moment, he only needed to do one thing. Kill Qin Hao. Qin Hao was the source of the disaster. Getting rid of him would also break Chen Wanqin's heart. Immediately, a fierce glint appeared in his eyes. Without waiting for Big Mouth Lee to announce the start of the match, he turned around and punched directly at Qin Hao's face. A ball of orange flame suddenly appeared on his fist. This ball of flame was not the origin fire condensed from the origin energy of a Yuan practitioner. It was his origin soul fire, and its power was not to be underestimated. If it touched the enemy even a little bit, it would be like a maggot in one's bones. Could not be shaken off and would only end up being burned alive. After killing you, everything will be over. Qin Hao die. Be careful. Tian Buguang's attack was too sudden. Chen Wanqin immediately shouted anxiously. She was very clear about the power of the flame wrapped around the fist. Tian Buguang was a ruthless character who could kill opponents above his level. Adding the power of his soul fire, no one below the 8-star Mortal Saint realm was his match. The championship was practically in his bag. Wanqin, just wait and see. Watch Qin Hao be burned into a pile of ashes by me. In this world, other than me, Tian Buguang, you have no other choice. In front of Chen Wanqin, Tian Buguang wanted to kill Qin Hao with one blow. He wanted to use his actions to tell everyone that he was the strongest among the younger generation. He was the most outstanding. In fact, in order to kill Qin Hao, he had given him enough face. After all, he had used the power of his origin soul. At least in Tian Buguang's opinion, in the next second, Qin Hao would let out a scream and disappear between heaven and earth. Because no one could block his punch. If they blocked it, then he would use a second punch. But there would definitely not be a third punch. After all, Tianbuguang had an awe-inspiring nickname in Starry Moon Academy. People called him Invincible Second Punch. It meant that when he killed someone, he would never use a third punch. In fact, he had defeated Sword Young Master with one punch. Chi, accompanied by the sound of fire burning through the air, this punch was extremely fast and violent. In almost the blink of an eye, it had already landed on Qin Hao's face. Qin Hao, you were born at the wrong time. This punch will definitely kill him. The audience sighed. If there was Tianbuguang in the world, then there shouldn't be Qin Hao. What a waste of such a talent. He shouldn't have made an enemy of Tianbuguang. Qi La. Sure enough, Tianbuguang's punch directly punched through Qin Hao's head, along his face, and through the back of his head. The scene was simple and brutal. Ha ha! Dead? That was too easy. That trash Qin Hao really disappointed me. Tianbuguang then threw his head back and laughed. He was also surprised that he had killed Qin Hao with a single punch. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Perhaps even he himself had underestimated his own abilities. But suddenly, a chill came from behind him. Tianbuguang's expression changed slightly, and he immediately turned around. Whoosh! However, another Qin Hao appeared in front of him, unharmed. How is this possible? Tianbuguang's eyes widened. He looked behind him, then looked in front of him, and compared the two Qin Hao. At this time, the Qin Hao whose head was punched through by him earlier had slowly dissipated. It was just an afterimage. Your speed. How is it so fast? Tianbuguang looked at the relaxed Qin Hao with an incredulous expression. Whether it was the battle with Bu Xiangchen or when he killed Wang Gui, he had seen Qin Hao's speed. It was indeed fast, and his reaction was not bad. However, it was impossible for him to escape from his punch. Even an 8-star mortal saint could not escape from his soul fire. Could it be that you've leveled up again? Before Qin Hao could reply, Tianbuguang spoke again. The surprise on his face was even more intense. Yes, congratulations on your guess. Qin Hao did not deny it and nodded. Just as he was trapped by the red-clothed man's blood net and his consciousness was getting blurrier and blurrier, the power of his blood essence awakened, and a majestic blood qi kept washing Qin Hao's meridians. Qin Hao's cultivation base also broke through one level and became a 6-star mortal saint. However, Qin Hao's vitality as a 6-star mortal saint was not inferior to that of a 9-star mortal saint. Therefore, when Tianbuguang's attack that he was so proud of fell into Qin Hao's eyes, it was as slow as a snail's crawl. Little did he know that the gap between the two of them had been widened unknowingly. Surprisingly, Qin Hao had the absolute advantage. Whoosh! Below the Luo Shui stage, there was a commotion. Leveling up was an extremely difficult thing for cultivators, especially when one's cultivation base reached the level of a 9-star primary grandmaster. 80% of the continent's Yuan practitioners would not be able to break through the bottleneck of becoming a saint in their lifetime. Otherwise, saints would have already filled the sky. Therefore, every Yuan practitioner who became a saint was undoubtedly a talent. After becoming a saint, leveling up was even more difficult. Every time one leveled up, one's strength was equivalent to crossing a natural chasm. Now look at Qin Hao in reverse. It was truly infuriating to compare oneself to others. Before the start of the competition, he had become a saint from a 9-star primary grandmaster overnight. Then, he had eaten a piece of vegetable leaf in the arena, and his strength had soared to a 3-star mortal saint. After eating 2 more pieces, he had reached the pinnacle of 5-star. In the blink of an eye, he was already a 6-star. Could it be that he's a disciple of a supremacy? In fact, Qin Hao also has a special constitution. For example, a bloodline that allows him to upgrade his profession? Get lost. Isn't Qin Hao going to become a god? In my opinion, he must have some treasure on him. You're absolutely right. Think about it. He was hit by Principal Shifang's palm, but he didn't die. He was trapped in the blood net by the red-clothed male contestant, and the red-clothed male contestant unexpectedly exploded. Qin Hao must have some treasure on him, or he must have obtained some mysterious power of inheritance. The public opinion gradually spread. Wave after wave engulfed the entire arena like a tidal wave. When Principal Shifang heard this, his old face scrunched up. He also firmly believed that Qin Hao must have some treasure. He was clearly an ordinary person, but he fought all the way to the champion position. This was simply unimaginable. Of course, these gossip did not escape Qin Hao's ears. He could not help but secretly laugh at himself. Was he too eye-catching? It was a good thing to be noticed, but being targeted was a bad thing. In fact, he really did have a treasure. That interspatial ring was an illusion of a 1,000-year void spirit stone and a divine weapon, and there was a drop of godfiend blood essence in his heart. It was not wrong to say that he had inherited power. Qin Hao himself was the rebirth of the first-generation Dendi. An extremely crazy howl suddenly sounded. On the stage, Tianbuguang was about to go crazy. To be precise, he was about to be driven crazy by Qin Hao. He actually did not succeed in something that should have been solved with one punch. Undoubtedly, he was slapped in the face by Qin Hao again. Chapter 428. As he spoke, Tianbuguang spread his legs wide open, the soles of his feet firmly stuck to the stage. 2 balls of soul fire once again condensed on his fists, and this time, both fists were on fire. Even if you manage to dodge my first punch, it's impossible for you to dodge my second punch. I haven't used my second punch for a very long time. I remember that the only time I used it before the start of the competition was when I fought against an inner court senior. I'm sorry, but even an inner court senior from Star Moon Academy was defeated by my second punch. Now, Qin Hao, you can die without regrets. Buzz buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, the flames on his fists burned even more fiercely, like 2 red suns. I didn't expect Brother Qin Hao to be able to force Tianbuguang to use his second punch. Sword Prince's face was filled with shock. What? Is his second punch very powerful? Xiaogua asked curiously. Not very powerful, but extremely powerful. How powerful? You'll know soon. Sai, my condolences. Sword Prince patted Xiaogua's shoulder. Actually, he wanted to say that he should prepare for Qin Hao's afterlife. Because after the second punch, old Hao would definitely die. On the other side, Tianbuguang had already moved. His body was like a gust of wind, flying out. As he charged, his body emitted sparks like fireflies. Flaming Dipper Fist. With a roar, he punched out with both fists, splitting them into 2 paths, attacking Qin Hao from above and below. His left fist punched his face, and his right fist punched his chest. From Qin Hao's performance just now, his current strength is comparable to an 8-star mortal saint. But he definitely won't be able to dodge Tianbuguang's attack. Below Luoshui's stage, an old man with some prestige said solemnly. He was an old senior, and he had authority. To this everyone nodded. But in the next second, this old man was cleanly slapped in the face. Puff. With a palm, Qin Hao easily blocked Tianbuguang's attack. He was too lazy to dodge. His right hand caught the fist that was about to hit his face, and his right elbow blocked the fist that was about to hit his chest. He only used one hand to block the opponent's fist. The scene could be described as incomparably elegant. How is this possible? Tianbuguang exclaimed. Using only one hand? He had blocked the flaming Dipper Fist that even an inner disciple of Star Moon Academy couldn't defeat? His soul fire was still wrapped around the fist. The word monster popped up in his mind without hesitation. Tianbuguang's soul fire was enough to severely injure an 8-star mortal saint, but it couldn't even burn through Qin Hao's vital energy. He thought it was an illusion, but he watched as the flame on his fist shrunk under the orange yuan qi emitted by Qin Hao until it was about to be extinguished. Reality told him that this was not an illusion. However, he knew that this flaming dragon was more powerful. It's time for me to show my trump card. Suddenly, the orange yuan qi on Qin Hao's body dissipated, and his dancing hair fell behind his back. Instead, a ball of fire appeared on his body. However, this ball of fire was much weaker than Tianbuguang, who was burning fiercely in the sky. On Qin Hao's body, there were only dense spots of light floating, like sparks flying out of a fireplace. It seemed very weak. Primordial fire? Everyone below the stage was shocked. Was Qin Hao thinking of using his own primordial fire to clash head-on with Tianbuguang, who had soul fire? This was the thought that flashed through everyone's mind. Primordial fire was very common for yuan qi practitioners. Everyone had it. However, soul fire was hard to find, even one in 10,000 miles. The two were not on the same level at all. In their opinion, Qin Hao was overestimating himself. However, in fact, Qin Hao really did that. When the flaming dragon was getting closer and closer, a raging flame erupted from Qin Hao's body. The majestic fire with a hum sound swept over 100 meters. After the fire spread from the Luoshui stage, it spread all the way to another 100 meters. The spectators who were slightly closer to the stage only felt a wave of heat coming towards them. Their faces were burning painfully, and their hair was also crazily flung to the back of their heads under the impact of this wave of heat. Then, they were incinerated. There were even some old people whose hats were swept off their heads for no reason. Before they could fly more than 10 meters away, they directly turned into ashes and drifted down. Who said that primordial fire is destined to be inferior to soul fire? Who said that people without primordial spirits are destined to be trampled under the feet of people with primordial spirits? I, Qin Hao, do not believe in this evil. Open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Chapter 429. The audience below the stage was excited by the scene. They wanted to see if the primordial fire cultivated step by a yuan cultivator was more powerful, or if a natural soul fire was more powerful. Could Qin Hao break this unwritten heavenly rule? In the blink of an eye, Qin Hao and the fire dragon were getting closer and closer in the air. The two flames, one big and one small, formed a sharp contrast and were about to crash into each other. At this moment, Qin Hao's right hand was stretched straight forward and clenched into a fist. On his index finger, the interspatial ring emitted a dazzling light. Did he really think that he was going to fight the fire dragon formed by his primordial spirit with his physical body? Qin Hao was not that stupid. Even if he could win, he would consume a lot of primordial qi and his flesh would be burnt and covered in wounds. What he wanted was an easy victory. The Great Void Cauldron could even forcibly absorb the Red Lotus Fire, which was ranked third on the continent. Subduing a mere soul fire was not enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Boom! It was accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion. It's colliding, it's colliding. Everyone, look! Someone pointed at the sky and shouted excitedly. Smack! An old man slapped him on the face. Old man, you're not blind yet. Why are you crying like a ghost? At this moment it was extremely tense. The tens of thousands of people below held their breaths and clenched their fists at the same time. The champion of the Rising Star competition was born at this moment. As soon as he touched it, Qin Hao felt a scorching heat that was almost 100 times stronger than ordinary flames. If it were an ordinary person, they would not even have the chance to touch it. They would be burned to ashes if they were 100 meters away. Even if an 8-star mortal sage were to face it, he would definitely be killed by this fire dragon. Tianbuguang does have some skills and can be considered a genius. Unfortunately, he met me. Absorb. After praising, Qin Hao raised his right fist and activated the interspatial ring on his finger. He aimed it at the fire dragon in front of him and sucked it madly. Even with his primordial qi that was comparable to a 9-star mortal saint, it was very difficult to resist the high temperature in front of him. A vortex with a suction force gushed out along with the ring's light. The whirlpool grew bigger and bigger. It expanded from a meter wide to 10 meters wide in an instant. The fire dragon had just flown over when it crashed into the vortex. Immediately, it let out a panicked cry as it was sucked in by the vortex without any ability to resist. It couldn't break free at all. Gradually, Tianbuguang's torrential wave of fire, which seemed to possess astonishing power, became smaller and smaller as it was absorbed by the spatial ring. In the end, it became a tiny tongue of fire that was completely absorbed into the spatial ring. The world became quiet. The rising temperature disappeared, and white clouds floated in the blue sky. The sky was clear and boundless. In the outside world, everyone saw that Qin Hao had been swallowed by the huge fire dragon in just one move, and his shadow had completely disappeared. There was an 80% chance that he had turned into ashes. It seemed like he was not fated to break heavenly rules. How could essence fire possibly be stronger than soul fire? But suddenly, the situation in the sky changed. The fire dragon that had swallowed Qin Hao disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, Qin Hao's figure appeared. He wasn't injured at all, and there was even a smile on his face. What the hell? What's the situation? He was hit by Tianbuguang's soul fire with all his strength, and he was unscathed. Quick, quick, quick. Little grandson, quickly support me. Old man's heart disease is acting up again. Below the stage, cries of alarm rang out. There was an old man clutching his chest, gasping for breath frantically, as if he would die at any time. As for Sword Prince, his chin fell to the ground once again. Why? High up in the sky, Tianbuguang could no longer maintain his flame body due to exhausting all his essence qi, and revealed his true body. Almost subconsciously, he asked Qin Hao in a daze. This question was actually also the question of all the spectators present. No matter how high Qin Hao's strength was, it was impossible to be unscathed after being hit by the soul fire condensed from the essence spirit. Moreover, that fire dragon suddenly disappeared without a trace. Where did it go? That was Tianbuguang's full-strength attack that exhausted all his essence qi. But it was very obvious that Qin Hao would not tell him. This question, you'd better go into the coffin and ask the King of Hell. After speaking, there was an explosion. Qin Hao raised his fist and punched straight up. Under his fist, a fire dragon that was 10 feet long meandered out, letting out a fierce roar, and mercilessly rolling up towards the stunned Tianbuguang. All of a sudden, there was an explosion of cries from the people below. Qin Hao also shot out a fire dragon. What was outrageous was that it was the same size as Tianbuguang's. What was even more outrageous was that the aura emitted by this fire dragon was faintly, exactly the same as Tianbuguang's soul fire. No, it was a little different. In terms of aura, it was stronger than his. In terms of the purity of the flame, it also firmly suppressed the latter. Some sharp-eyed people noticed that the fire dragon that Tianbuguang shot out, the dragon's eyes were golden. Qin Hao returned the fire dragon, but its eyes were scarlet and exceptionally ferocious. There was also a domineering majesty emitting from that dragon's body, making people not dare to face it. Even Li Dazue, a king-level master, felt a strong threat from the fire dragon that Qin Hao shot out. This threat was very inexplicable, but he firmly believed that if he touched even the slightest bit, it was very likely that he would lose his integrity in his later years. Minor injuries were minor, but the possibility of serious burns was greater. Looking at the fire dragon rushing over, Tian Buguang was even more shocked. How could he not know? This was clearly his soul fire. Ha ha! I understand, Qin Hao, you shameless person, you must have some kind of treasure on you, trying to blast my attack back to me. Let me tell you, that's impossible, because this is my power. After coming to his senses, Tian Buguang's confidence doubled. He felt that Qin Hao was a retard. He had enough ability to reabsorb the fire dragon that pounced on him. It also happened to solve Tian Buguang's urgent problem. His vitality consumption was too serious. Therefore, he opened his arms and prepared to hug the fire dragon with a face full of enjoyment. He was full of joy like a parent bringing their child home. The fire dragon was his seed. Unfortunately, this was only Tian Buguang's wishful thinking. In fact, the fire dragon's body was his, but its soul was the red lotus fire. Therefore, Tian Buguang would have to pay an unforgettable price for this. Boom! Unsurprisingly, the fire dragon crashed into Tian Buguang's chest, who had a look of enjoyment on his face. Unexpectedly, he found that he could not absorb it at all. The vitality carried by the fire dragon was very repulsive to him. Then, an anal cracking scream rolled through the sky. Tian Buguang's throat was as loud as a pig being slaughtered. This scream could even be heard in the entire Luoshui imperial city. Then, everyone saw that Tian Buguang's clothes were completely burned to ashes in the raging fire. Not a single strand of hair was left on his body. He fell from the sky with a cloud of black smoke. However, his skin was not damaged at all. Therefore, this scene was an eye-opener. He fell from the sky naked. His whole body was visible at a glance. This shining white. Suddenly, many girls below were forced to cover their eyes and curse Tian Buguang for being shameless. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.